Chapter 521. The amateur Go player is back. Is it bad news? Zhang Han thought about it and said calmly, I'll take this opportunity to have a talk with him if I encounter him this time. Yes, you are as strong as him, or even stronger, and even Master Ji praised you as an invincible Grand Master. As long as he is still below the divine realm, we needn't worry too much. Lieutenant smiled. Invincible Grand Master, those three words meant so much. It indicated that Zhang Han was invincible among Grand Masters. Therefore, Lieutenant had confidence in Zhang Han. But it was necessary for Lieutenant to remind Zhang Han, because Zhang Han's family was his Achilles heel. Lieutenant knew that if Xian or Meng had an accident, Zhang Han would destroy this world without hesitation. Therefore, Lieutenant would make careful and detailed arrangements to ensure the safety of Zhang Han's family. Thinking about what had happened, he asked in curiosity, we are in the cultivation ending period, and it should be much more difficult for a cultivator to grow, but we have seen so many talents and relics recently, and even Gai Xingkong is going to advance to the divine realm, which is so weird. And you, Zhang Han, I've never heard of anyone who has made rapid progress in such a short time like you. Cultivation ending period? I don't think so. Zhang Han chuckled. In a real cultivation ending period, there wouldn't be enough spiritual chi for further cultivation. Therefore, although the cultivation circle here was not prosperous, the world was filled with spiritual chi, and their era couldn't be called a cultivation ending period. There wouldn't be so many relics and treasures for them to discover in a real cultivation ending period. Not to mention all those steady worldlets attached to the main world. There were signs that Zhang Han's guess might be right. This planet might be not in a cultivation ending period, but it was more like a saint warrior planet. To be exact, a saint warrior planet being suppressed by something unknown. It seemed that all the energy it contained that could transform the cultivators was being used to do something else. Is the planet suppressing something horrible with all its energies? Are all the energies converging somewhere to form a real place of cultivation? Is that place the world of immortals they often mentioned? All in all, these energies must be maintaining something. That's why although this world is in an era close to a cultivation ending period, there are still talents emerging in an endless stream. Zhang Han knew about the boat of curse he had encountered several times. It was also weird. All these were just conjectures made by Zhang Han after a period of observation. As for the truth, he knew that when his strength was raised to a higher level in the future, he would naturally figure it out. I'll inform you when I get the specific information, Lieutenant said, then hung up the phone. Xian hurriedly asked, any information about the relics? Just some news that hasn't been confirmed yet. Zhang Han shook his head slightly. I'll search for the location of Mount Snow. While chatting with Xian, Zhang Han clicked open the map application on his cell phone and searched for the location. After a while, he raised an eyebrow slightly. It's near the eastern suburbs of Ice City. If we go on a trip, we can go there and have a look. Well. Zhao Feng's eyes lit up. Is this trip suitable for us? I don't know. I'm waiting for the specific information. Zhang Han shook his head and replied. Everything remained uncertain, and Zhang Han dared not make a conclusion so early. After returning to their company, Zhang Han and Xian drove to St. Kindergarten to pick up Meng. At the gate of the kindergarten, Zhang Han got out of the car and entered the school. Papa. Meng bounced toward Zhang Han, threw herself into her daddy's arms, and then dug into her pocket for something. Papa, look, wow, you got a little red flower again. Zhang Han's eyes lit up. Yes. Meng announced happily, it's my second flower, and Papa owes Meng 2 wishes. Yes, Zhang Han gently pinched Meng's face. Meng is marvelous, how could you get the second flower so soon? Ha ha ha, Papa, you have to promise me 2 things. Meng waved her hands and said happily. Okay, Zhang Han put Meng on the ground and asked with a smile, what are your wishes? He wanted to know what Meng Meng liked so he could make preparations for her birthday. However, Meng Meng pouted after hearing his words. "No, I can't." Meng Meng began playing with her fingers. "Why not?" Zhang Han asked in confusion. "I don't want to use these two opportunities so early. I'll wait for the 100th promise and use them all then." Meng Meng raised her head and said innocently, "I'll save 100 wishes and then use them, so I can be happy for a long time." Zhang Han couldn't help laughing. "Okay, I'll wait for Meng Meng's 100th little red flower." Meng Meng was delighted by Zhang Han's words. "I can definitely get 100 flowers." They went back to Cold Immortal School. Xian and Meng Meng pasted the little red flower on the small blackboard and then played on their large bed. After a while, when Zhang Han was about to prepare dinner, he received a call from Zhao Feng. "Master, I got a call from Patriarch Luo Chengwen, saying that the bluefin tuna arrived, and he wants to visit you along with Luo Shan. He wondered if you are free." "I see." Zhang Han thought about it and replied, "Let them come to my house." "Okay," Zhao Feng replied, then continued, "By the way, Master, Ziqiang and Chairman Liu will arrive at the international airport in half an hour." "Okay, I see." Then Zhang Han hung up the phone. After returning to the bedroom, he asked Xian, "Your parents are coming back, shall we pick them up?" "Dad and Mum, well, you can ask Xiaofeng to pick them up," Xian replied. "It's my duty as their son-in-law." Zhang Han grinned, "I must compensate them for stealing you away from them. Would you like to wait for me at home with Meng Meng?" "Ha ha." Xian was amused by him. "Let's go to the airport together, Meng Meng. How about going to pick up your grandparents with us?" "Well, okay." Meng Meng thought for a while then asked, "Mama, will Grandpa play Go with Papa this time?" Meng Meng remembered that Grandpa enjoyed playing Go with Papa. "Maybe." Xian hesitated. "Of course he will," Xian thought. "But this time, I'm going to write songs with my husband." At the thought of robbing her father of the right to use her husband, Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "In that case, Papa won't have time to play with us." Meng Meng burst her lips and snorted, "Don't worry about that, you can watch us play Go, and maybe your grandpa has something else to do this time." Zhang Han shook his head and smiled. The family of three left home for the airport. After a while, they saw Liu Qingfeng, Ziqiang, and their security guards. "Grandpa, Grandma." Meng Meng stretched out her hand and waved at them. "My dear granddaughter, did you miss your grandpa?" Ziqiang strode over to Meng Meng, picked her up, and kissed her on the cheek. Seeing them, Zhang Han was about to say something, but he managed to give up the idea. After greeting Liu Qingfeng, they all got in the car. While Zhang Han was still driving his panda car, with Xian in the passenger seat and Meng Meng in the back seat with her grandparents, Liu Qingfeng went back to his company with his motorcade. "I've dealt with all my business, let's play Go after dinner." Just as I expected, Ziqiang began challenging Zhang Han as soon as he got in the car. "Okay," Zhang Han replied with a smile. "Dad, I can lend my husband to you for only one night, we'll be busy tomorrow." Xian warned her father jokingly. "What are you going to do?" Ziqiang was confused. "Well, we're taking part in a show, and we'll write our own songs for it." Xian smiled. "Your songs? I see." Ziqiang thought about it and nodded. "Take care of your business in the daytime, and come back to play with me in the evening." Xian gave him a helpless smile. "Why are you smiling like that?" Ziqiang stared at her daughter and said, "I'll go back to Singapore in a few days." "Do you want to rob me of Zhao Han? You still have a long way to go with him." Xian was amused by Ziqiang and covered her smile with her hand. "Okay, do anything you like." Zixini Wu, who kept smiling while listening to their conversation, was now playing with Meng Meng. Ziqiang enjoyed playing Go with Zhang Han, which showed that he acknowledged Zhang Han as his son-in-law. "Dad, Mom, will you go back in a few days? Why not stay here longer?" Ziyan asked. We still have something to do. Ziqiang smiled and said, I'm going to cooperate with Chairman Liu on some projects, and he will go to Singapore with me for the final investigation before launching the projects. I have to admit that Chairman Liu is an excellent businessman, and I admire his business style. He would not be in his present position if he was not excellent. Zhang Han chuckled and replied, You are excellent, too. Ha ha, I agree with you. Ziqiang's eyes lit up. Of course, only excellent parents could give birth to such an excellent daughter. Ah? Ziqiang was surprised and then nodded. Yes, you are right. Well, he isn't praising me for my style of doing business. Christmas is less than a month away. Will Meng Meng have a vacation? Ziqiang asked. Yes, maybe 1 week, but I don't know it clearly. The chairman of the kindergarten is coming, and we can ask him, Ziyan replied. Will you go back to Singapore then? Ziqiang tried to invite his daughter. Ziyan hesitated for a while, and then shook her head. I'm sorry, Dad, but it depends on our schedule. It's too early to talk about it now. Okay. They talked and laughed all the way. As soon as they stepped into Cold Immortal School, Ziqiang and Zixiniu were stunned. They hadn't expected Zhang Han to finish such a big project in such a short time. They had just been gone for a few days. Ziqiang thought of Zhang Han's identity as a martial artist, and shook his head with a smile. But his son-in-law still had one drawback. It was not because Zhang Han was mediocre. On the contrary, he was so excellent that Ziqiang was worrying about Ziyan's marriage with him. As an excellent man, he will encounter many beauties in the future. What if he bullies or even abandons my daughter? Of course, Zhang Han didn't need to wait for the future, for there were some beauties thinking about him now. Zhang Han Yang, I'll kill you. Somewhere in the blessed region. There was a deafening cry from Mugs. When she found the character O on her forehead, Mugs wanted to go to Hong Kong and kill Zhang Han immediately, but the character disappeared after 12 hours. It frightened her, Shi Fenu, and Yi Longyuan, and diluted their anger. What the hell is this magic? Chapter 522, How to Use the Sky-High Priced Member Card. They drove all the way to the castle. They passed by the bodyguards of the Wang family and the members of the security group, who mingled with the pedestrians. When they arrived at the front square of the castle, they saw a black Bentley Mulsanne with a van beside it. Luo Chengwen, Luo Shan, and Zhao Feng were standing there, laughing and chatting. Not long ago, when Zhao Feng was still working for Tang Zan, Patriarch Luo wouldn't talk with him in this way, and even Tang Zan was not qualified to meet Luo Chengwen. But times had changed, and Zhao Feng was now qualified to communicate with any big family. Though this change was brought about by Zhang Han's strength and position. In short, a strong backer could make a big difference. As soon as they saw Zhang Han, both Luo Chengwen and Luo Shan hurried to welcome him. Mr. Zhang. They greeted Zhang Han after he got out of the car. Then they went into the hall on the first floor. To be honest, Luo Chengwen was also stunned at the first sight of Cold Immortal School. A place with such treasures was priceless in New Moon Bay. He knew that Zhang Han hadn't been in Hong Kong for a long time, but it was the young man's strength as a top martial artist in the martial arts world that had helped him rank among the top forces in Hong Kong rapidly. They sat on the sofa on the right side of the first floor. Zhang Han took the lead to introduce them. This is Patriarch Luo, Luo Chengwen, and Luo Shan, the chairman of Meng Meng's kindergarten. And these are my in-laws. Patriarch Luo, I've heard so much about you. Ziqiang stretched out his hand. The four grand families took strong root in Hong Kong as great business clans, and Ziqiang had also heard about them in Singapore. Facing Ziqiang's hand, Luo Chengwen hurried to stand up and say politely, Nice to meet you. Well, Uncle Zi, don't be so courteous. Luo Chengwen was nearly 40 years old, and he often called someone like Ziqiang Mr. Zi or brothers if they were in a higher position than him, but this time, he called Ziqiang Uncle Zi. Ziqiang was surprised by the power of his son-in-law. After chatting for a while, Zhang went upstairs with Meng to change their clothes. Zhang Han checked the time and said, "Father, Patriarchal Yuo, wait for a moment. I'm going to deal with the food ingredients and make our dinner." Luo Shan went out with Zhang Han and asked his men to carry that 1-meter-long bluefin tuna into the big kitchen on the second floor. Zhang Han began preparing dinner. There are lots of methods to cook tuna, but it is recommended to make sashimi with the sweetmeat bluefin tuna. Besides, Zhang Han was going to steam some fish meat for Meng. It was a giant bluefin tuna, and they would have a whole fish feast for dinner with some side dishes. It would take Zhang Han at least 1 hour to make the food. Ziqiang was not content to talk with Luo Chengwen and Luo Shan for such a long time, so he cleared his throat and asked, "Does Patriarchal Yuo play Go?" "Go?" Patriarchal Yuo was interested in this topic. "I like chess games and calligraphy from childhood, including Go, but my energy is limited and I don't specialize in Go skills. In fact, the chess games that Luo Chengwen referred to were limited to chess and Go. Go was his favorite game, and he had high attainments in this field." He decided not to tell the truth. "Shall we play Go now?" Ziqiang's eyes lit up. "I've been studying it for many years, and Han is a rare rival to me. I play Go with him each time we meet." Luo Chengwen nodded with a smile and accepted the invitation. Ziqiang took out a Go board from the suitcase next to him, and began to arrange it on the sofa and tea table. Luo Chengwen had expected Ziqiang to be well matched with him. After a few moves, he looked at Ziqiang weirdly. Is this the result of his years of studying? Though some of his moves are innovative, he always makes bad chess moves at the critical moment, and I'll soon defeat him. He said that he is well matched with Grandmaster Zhang. Hiss. I'll let him win the game. Therefore, a few minutes later, Ziqiang looked at the Go board seriously and made his final move. The pieces fell on the board and made a crisp sound. Ziqiang paused, sighed with relief, and then said, "Don't lose heart." "Well," Luo Chengwen took a serious look at the board, shook his head, and then complimented Ziqiang. "Uncle Z, your skill in Go is excellent." Though he was flattering Ziqiang, he did appreciate some of his moves. In the middle of the game, Ziqiang began attacking him in a fierce way and did make some excellent moves. Luo Chengwen didn't know that Ziqiang had acquired these skills in his numerous competitions with Zhang Han. "Ha ha, again." Ziqiang laughed and cleared the board. Before they could finish the game, Zhang Han began serving dinner. They went to the 5th floor of the cylindrical building, where they sat down in front of the all-round French windows, enjoyed New Moon Bay under the moonlight, and had dinner together. In addition to this bluefin tuna, Luo Chengwen also brought 16 bottles of precious wine. While drinking and eating, Luo Chengwen couldn't help sighing with jealousy and praising Zhang Han's cooking skill. The guests all had a good time and left after dinner. Luo Chengwen had talked with Zhao Feng about his ideas, who got Zhang Han's permission and gave Luo Chengwen a satisfactory answer. The next day, it was Sunday, and Ziqiang and Zixiniu were playing with Meng on the back mountain. Next to them were Zhang Han and Xian, who was writing songs with her guitar in her arms. This song is quite suitable, but I don't remember it very well. Although I remember most of the lyrics, I forget the melody, Zhang Han said as he tried to recall. "Is the melody soft or intense?" asked Xian. "It should be light and melodious." "That's easy. Write down the words first, and then we'll study the accompaniment together." In this way, Zhang Han and Xian started to work together. They were very efficient. On the first day, they decided on the music and lyrics, and the next day, they began recording the accompaniment. It was Sunday night when everything was ready. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Luo Chengwen and Luo Shan invited 2 friends to the branch of Meng's recreational restaurant. They went all the way to the 2nd floor and attracted the attention of countless diners. There were also many people in the members' area. The rules in this branch restaurant were much laxer, and the members were allowed to bring their friends with them. When they got to the members' area and sat down, they could hear some murmurs. "Patriarchal Yuo is here. Luo Shan should be the next patriarch. Patriarch Luo goes everywhere with him. Their member card cost them 1.5 billion. What a great loss. Luo Chengwen heard that guy's last sentence. Great loss? Ha ha. He laughed at that man in silence. You'll never understand how many benefits I'll get from this high-priced card. It will lead me to prosperity. You'll soon know what I'm talking about. After communicating with Zhao Feng, Luo Chengwen had learned some news in advance. For the upper class of Hong Kong, this was undoubtedly big news. Just as Luo Chengwen had expected, that night, some sensational news shocked many big families in Hong Kong. Zhang Han was going to move Meng Meng's recreational restaurant to Colden Mortal School and reopen it. From then on, the restaurant would accept members only, and each member card was priced at 10 million yuan. Anyone who wanted to be a member should sign up in advance and pay a 10 million yuan registration fee. Finally, the members would be selected by drawing lots, and the application fee they paid would be converted into the card handling fee. For those who failed in the selection, they would get a refund of 5 million yuan and pay a handling fee of 5 million yuan. This rule was to prevent the large families from monopolizing the registration qualification. If the losers got a full refund, Zhang Han was worried that any big family could occupy thousands of seats. Of course, whether or not to accept this rule was entirely up to the applicants, and Zhang Han would not change the rule. Recently, too many people went to see Zhao Feng and tried their best to get a restaurant membership card. They even asked him directly when the next auction would be. Therefore, Zhang Han came up with this idea to sell the cards. Upon hearing this news, many influential families didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Ha ha, he priced the cards at 10 million yuan? What good news. Luo Chengwen will get nothing back from his 1.5 billion yuan. This time, I'm going to get 20 places. Although there are many participants, we'll compete for 30 member cards, and I'm sure I can get one. Many families had the same idea. However, at 10 o'clock in the evening, news spread from the Luo family. The Luo family was preparing to buy a large number of martial arts materials, because they had reached a cooperation agreement with Master Zhang, and then they would provide resources for Master Zhang to refine special medicinal pellets for them. What is the special medicinal pellet? Later on, they learned that it was the most suitable medicinal pellet specially made for some qualified disciples of the Luo family. What? Is Grand Master Zhang an alchemist? Many people were startled. They soon learned from the National Security Agency that Master Zhang was also an excellent alchemist. Even all the members of Meng Meng's security group got benefits from Master Zhang's medicinal pellets. Boom! The news startled many influential families, especially the other two big families that were well matched with the Luo family. They were feeling regret now. This opportunity just cost him 1.5 billion. Why aren't we as lucky as him? The member card priced at 1.5 billion yuan is so cheap, it is worth more than 3 billion yuan. The opportunity is priceless. But the chance that they had missed would never come back, and all they could do now was regret. In addition, Luo Chengwen was so lucky mainly because he was favored by Zhang Han. Zhang Han was willing to make friends with those who respected him. Luo Shan's and Luo Chengwen's deeds pleased him. Therefore, Zhang Han didn't mind to make friends with them and treat them in the same way. The number of people who signed up for the draw that night reached 500 in just 1 hour. Zhang Han would make 5 million from every applicant, and these 500 people brought him 2.5 billion net profit. All the families participated in the draw. Their power was formidable. Chapter 523, Our Love Song. All those top families, including the Chu family, each bought dozens of places for the draw. The news had just spread out and only the top families were able to respond to it as soon as possible, who had occupied nearly 500 places. At the same time, Yi Han's family held an urgent meeting. How many places should we buy this time? I just learned that within 2 hours after the news spread, 500 places have been bought, so our chances of winning the lottery will be infinitely lowered. We are sure to have one place. As for how many places we can buy, let's discuss it. Patriarchy looked at the dozens of Cal family members and spoke seriously. We have at least 500 competitors, and tomorrow we will draw lots. The final number of applicants should be between 800 and 1000, but there are only 30 membership cards. If we only buy one place, the probability of winning is very low. I think we need to buy at least 10 places, a co-member said. We'll pay 5 million for one place, and 50 million for 10 places. It's acceptable, another co-member wearing glasses said. Han seems to have a good relationship with Zhao Feng. If we get a member card, he can visit Cold Immortal School more frequently and strengthen this relationship, which will benefit him a lot. What's more, if he is favored by Mr. Zhang, our family will rise soon, said one of Yi Han's uncles. Yi Han's eldest uncle suddenly thought of something. Dong-u, you remind me that there is another way to attract Mr. Zhang. Kingxin has grown to be a pretty girl, and I'm sure Mr. Zhang will like her. If it was not for the law, Mr. Zhang, as a master, would naturally have some concubines. What about letting Kingxin and her sister visit Mr. Zhang frequently? If they succeed, we'll be one of the top families in Hong Kong. Everyone present was shocked by him. We can't do that, uncle. Yi Han hurried to persuade him with a pale face. We all know that Mr. Zhang loves his wife and daughter so much that he won't even spare a glance at other women. If Mr. Zhang finds out about your plan, he will get angry. Yes, we can't challenge his bottom line, but it's a good idea, and maybe Kingxin will be able to attract Zhao Feng, Mr. Zhang's first disciple, or some co-members of the other influential families. It's Kingxin's opportunity and she must seize it. Patriarchy thought about it and said, we need to fight this time. What about 20 places? 20 places will cost us 200 million, and we can earn it back through the next project. After all, we'll get 100 million back after the drawing. All the co-members began to discuss it. The Yi family was not strong compared with the top families in Hong Kong, and their working capital was less than 700 million, so the loss of 200 million would definitely affect some of their upcoming business projects. But Meng Meng's recreational restaurant was more attractive to them. Like the Yi family, many other families well matched with them, or even some top families were also planning to take part in the activity tomorrow. Cold Immortal School would give them the opportunity that they had been dreaming of. So that night, the number of people who signed up for the membership card lottery increased to more than 900. The restaurant's speed of making money in this way shocked many people. As for Zhang Han, he didn't care about how much he would earn this time. It was Zhao Feng's idea to open the restaurant of Cold Immortal School to the public. Upon hearing the news, many participants were so excited that they had a sleepless night. Zhang Han spent Saturday and Sunday studying songs with Xian. On Sunday night, Xian didn't live up to her promise, as if she had forgotten it. Therefore, Zhang Han hurried to a store in New Moon Bay and bought some snacks. When Xian saw Zhang Han with a bag of popping candy and several bags of jelly, she couldn't help rolling her eyes at him. However, at night, Zhang Han narrowed his eyes and listened to the crackling sound coming from under him. It was a very special experience. He felt comfortable and decided to take the show seriously. The next morning, Xian left at 7 o'clock to make some supplementary recordings for the program division. At 8 o'clock, Zhang Han took Meng Meng to kindergarten and then went back to his company. He got in the helicopter at 9 o'clock and flew to the program division. Soon, he arrived at his destination. The other 24 performers were already in the preparation room. They all stood up when they saw Zhang Han. Guru, I'm cute. Welcome, Guru. Nice to see you, Guru. They all greeted Zhang Han warmly. Even many people forgot the division of the team and stood up to meet Zhang Han. They all admired Zhang Han very much. Han Yang, as a super songwriter, had conquered them with his strength and was regarded as their idol. Han Yang deserved their respect. They were very enthusiastic. Zhang Han smiled, nodded, and waved his hands at them. Hello, everyone. The camera in the room captured everyone's behavior and appearance. Now the program team knew that the biggest gimmick this season was Han Yang's identity. They were confident that they would attract even more of an audience with the 4 mentors and Han Yang, and the show was going to go viral. This was also an opportunity for the other singers. Guru Cute, may I know the name of the song prepared by you and mentor Xian? Tong Jiajio asked in curiosity and expectation. Will you sing a love song? Yes. Zhang Han directly nodded. He was wearing a casual suit, sunglasses, and a cap so that no one else could see his whole face. But he was still handsome. Tong Jiajia raised another question. Guru Cute, are you mentor Xian's friend? If I wasn't, I wouldn't have taken part in the show. Zhang Han chuckled and shrugged casually. Wow, I'm even more curious about your relationship. Mentor Xian is so beautiful, but she is still single now. Guru Cute, if I hadn't heard that you have a baby, I would have suspected you to be her boyfriend. Tong Jiajia was confused by herself. Jiajia, stop gossiping. Please, you will never know Guru's relationship with mentor Xian if he doesn't want to tell you. Haha, I know it in detail, but I won't tell you either unless you beg me to do so. Sun Donging grinned at Tong Jiajia. Why not? Tong Jiajia was surprised and hurriedly went back to Sun Donging. Holding Sun Donging's arms, she gave the man a sweet smile and said, please, tell me the truth. Well, I'll tell you due to your sincerity. Sun Donging coughed to clear his throat. What's the truth? Tong Jiajia's eyes lit up, and even the other singers were attracted by their conversation. They had been guessing what Han Yang's relationship was with Xian. Why did Han Yang take part in the show for mentor Xian? The answer was surely amazing. Someone even suspected Han Yang to be Xian's boyfriend, which was much closer to the truth. However, Xian mentioned in the last show that Han Yang was a handsome young father. Therefore, he can't be Xian's boyfriend. A man with a family is not allowed to fall in love with any other woman. However, Xian is so beautiful and every man takes her as their dream lover. Is Han Yang attracted to Xian and thus caught in an extramarital affair? If that's the truth, then he will be regarded as a bad man if his extramarital affair is discovered. But what if Xian is his soulmate? Everyone in the room made all kinds of guesses. Zhang Han and Xian would be amused by these singers if the couple knew what they were thinking about. Almost no one got the truth. Zhang Han was Xian's husband actually. Sun Donging made Tong Jiajia guess for a while, and then shook his head. Let me tell you, the relationship between Guru Cute and mentor Xian is very what? Everyone wanted to smash their shoes on Sun Donging's face. The crowd's chat and laughter warmed up the whole room. In the mentor's preparation room, the atmosphere was also very warm. There was a while before the show started. In the past several days, the program team had decorated the stage, formed a 100-person jury, and invited 500 or 600 audience members. Xian, tell me if you have made full preparation for the show with your Mr. Right? Xuanhuan smiled. You can guess. Xian covered her smile with one hand. How can I guess? We are in great danger competing with that living song library. It was difficult for us to write a new song in the past 3 days. Diehua replied helplessly. Yes. Gafan kept nodding his head. To write a wonderful song, we should create a soul for it. 3 days were too short for us, and I can't help suspecting that this show is specially arranged for Xian by the program team. Ha ha ha, don't fool me. Chengzi told me that all of you made full preparation before the show. HMPH. Xian snorted. The other 3 mentors burst out laughing. We'll cooperate with one of our trainees, but we can't call him a trainee. Xuanhuan waved his hand. Let's stop here, I'll go backstage. Xian smiled and left the preparation room. Xian was wearing a snow-white dress, which made her even more elegant. When Xian arrived at the trainees' preparation room, all the singers were still chatting. She stopped at the door, waved, and said to Zhang Han, well, I'm cute, come here to make some preparation with me. All the trainees began cheering when they saw Xian. Mentor Xian is so beautiful. She is like a fairy. I fell in love with her. Xian smiled at them, and then went to the dressing room with Zhang Han. The makeup artist and hairdresser were the first to see Zhang Han's entire face in this show. Wow, you are quite handsome. Which style do you like? I'll make you a fashionable hairstyle to match your clothes. The hairdresser smiled. Okay, I like a fashionable hairstyle. Xian was amused. Wait. Zhang Han looked at Xian, but he recalled what had happened last night and gave up defending himself. After dozens of minutes, Zhang Han was now a real idol. You need a pair of rimless glasses. I'm sure that even my parents won't recognize you. You've totally changed your style and seem even younger. Xian looked at Zhang Han with great interest. Do I seem younger? Zhang Han looked at himself in the mirror, feeling a little embarrassed. Luckily, his face was still masculine, which kept him different from a young idol. Right at this moment, the chief director of the show stepped onto the stage with a microphone. Let's welcome 100 media reviewers and fans to watch the show of Chinese New Voice. The theme of this round of competition is saving trainees. 3 groups of tutors will sing together with their chosen students respectively, and 100 reviewers will score and rank them. Xian went back to the mentors' preparation room with Zhang Han. In addition to the 3 mentors, they saw another trainee there, who looked better after being dressed up. Let's welcome the first group, mentors Xuanhuan, Diehua, and trainee Bait. They'll sing a new song named Wild Crane or Floating Clouds. Xuanhuan and his partners stood up. He took a deep breath before he left the room. To be honest, I'm a little nervous. I hope that we can get a good result and won't fall far behind Xian. Xuanhuan and Diehua knew that there was no possibility for them to defeat Xian and Han Yang. No one could defeat Han Yang actually. Therefore, they aimed for second prize this time and decided to try their best. Come on. Good luck. Both Gufan and Xian encouraged them. After Xuanhuan and his partners got on stage, the stage lights dimmed and the music accompaniment began to ring out. The accompaniment was intense. Wild Crane or Floating Clouds. Sleeping Dragon in the River. It was a song with a strong Chinese style. The trainee took the lead to sing the song, and then Xuanhuan began to rap, which was followed by Diehua's high-pitched chorus. Then the 3 of them began singing together. All the lyrics, stage lighting, and rhythm were well designed. Many audience members were applauding and cheering for them. Thank you for your performance. Chief Director Cheng Zhu went back on stage and announced, let's welcome Gufan and his trainee, Ling Wai, to sing Waves of the Yangtze River. In the preparation room, Gufan and his trainee stood up. Wait a moment, we'll show you our strength. Gufan smiled at Zhang Han and Xian. Come on. Xian made an encouraging gesture to him. Gufan and his trainee soon stepped onto the stage. It was a pop song and they did a good job. But their performance was no better than that of Xuanhuan and Diehua. Gufan's trainee was so nervous that he failed to control his stage performance. Compared with them, Xuanhuan, as a professional singer in the rap circle, had lit up the stage with his performance. Mentor Gufan was implicated by Ling Wai and didn't get a good grade. He had no other choice. The song is difficult and challenging, and they actually did a good job. I wonder which song Mentor Xian will sing with Guru. It's their turn to perform. I've been looking forward to it. The singers in the trainees' preparation room began a new round of discussion. The same thing was happening in the mentors' room. Come on, we are here waiting for your song to detonate the stage. Xuanhuan smiled. We won't. With a smile, Xian and Zhang Han left the room side by side and went to the stage. Just a few steps away, they heard Cheng Zhu's heroic voice. The last group, Mentor Xian and I'm Cute, the best dark horse of the season, will sing the song I Want to Sing Me to You together. The stage lights suddenly turned warm yellow and began to flash. Cheng Zhu went to the side of the stage. while Zhang Han and Xian went to the stage hand in hand. Wow, it's a love song. Many trainees in the preparation room couldn't help sighing with emotion. Only a few in the audience knew the truth. Zhou, Zhaofeng, Sun Dongying, and Luz knew that the couple was again making a public display of affection. Then there was a melodious and light accompaniment on the stage. Xian took the lead to sing the song. I want to sing me to you, when I'm still young like a flower. Let the flower bloom to the fullest, decorate your time and my buds. Hearing Xian's voice, the hall fell into silence, for this beautiful voice was an ultimate enjoyment to the ears. In the preparation room, all the trainees began shouting, "What a sweet voice! It's fascinating! They are invincible!" All the people present were talking. Zhang Han began to sing in a soft voice, "No one could replace you, enjoy yourself when you are young." Xian took over his lyric in time, "My dearest, go with me along the long road." Zhang Han sang again, "I want to sing me to you." Before Zhang Han could finish, Xian began singing to set off his voice, "I want to sing me to you." Zhang Han followed her, "Give me your sweet smile, we should have." They sang together, "Happy and sunny days, I want to sing me to you." Their voices were constantly interspersed and matched, and various ingenious rhythms made many people intoxicated. During the entire song, no other sounds were heard in the hall. Fans below the stage stretched out their arms and shook their hands with the rhythm, with sweet smiles on their face. This was the charm of music. Wonderful, they've touched everyone present with their song. Gufan made a gesture to praise Zhang Han and Xian. It was difficult for any singer to touch their audience, because it required them to sing their feelings out and integrate their feelings into the song. It depended on the singer's skill, and a good singer could even move the audience to tears. All the singers and audience members, including Gufan, Xuanhuan, and Diehua, were totally conquered by Xian, Zhang Han, and their song. Chapter 524, Elimination. A sweet song. Diehua commented while looping the song in his mind. They did not use too many skills to achieve the perfect cooperation, and they handled the details of the song very well, especially the timbre of the two of them. Originally, Han Yang's voice was not suitable for this pure soft song, but driven by Xian's timbre, his hard voice matched Xian's soft voice and made a great change to the song. There is no doubt that they will win this competition. The evaluation of the mentors made the two trainees who cooperated with them envious. For them, performing on stage was difficult, and they admired Xian and Zhang Han so much. In fact, they didn't care about who would be resurrected. Chinese New Voice, the resurrection competition is over. Now let's invite 100 media reviewers to make their own choices. Everyone has only one chance to vote, and the group with more votes wins. Now, the voting begins. Chief Director Cheng Zhu said as he stepped onto the stage. 3 groups of names appeared on the large screen behind him. Xian, Gufan, and Xuanhuan and Diehua. Zoom. The voting began. The number of votes of all 3 groups began to grow rapidly. 3 votes, 5 votes, 10 votes. After getting their 15th vote, the votes for Gufan's team and Xuanhuan and Diehua's team slowed down. The number of Xian's votes was still growing. 20 votes, 30 votes, 50 votes, 55, 58, 59. Ding. The final tally was 59 votes. Xian and Zhang Han took up more than half of the votes, leaving the other 2 groups far behind. As for the number of votes Gufan got, the growth slowed down after the 15th vote. 16, 17. It finally stopped at 18 votes. Xuanhuan and Diehua got 23 votes. Well, thank all the media reviewers for your votes. Now I will announce that the team that won first prize in the Resurrection Challenge is Xian's team. She has 2 resurrection places, but because her team has 6 people, only 1 resurrection place can be used at this time. The team that won second prize is Xuanhuan and Diehua's team. They have 1 resurrection place, and the team that won the third prize is Gufan's team. and there is no resurrection quota for them. Mentors, please go to the elimination room to select the members to be revived. After Chengzu's voice had faded, Xian, Xuodong, and Diehua walked toward the elimination room. There were dozens of singers in the room who had been eliminated before. In this case, the music director could revive TQ with Xuodong and Diehua's help. But after TQ was eliminated last time, Tenzong, the chief executive of the program group, had a special conversation with the music director. No one knew the content of the conversation, but many people saw the music director come out of the office with a pale face. Then TQ disappeared from the program. Maybe he was too embarrassed to continue. He didn't have the courage to sing a complete song, which was his fault. The exit of TQ enabled Xuodong and Diehua to choose freely. In the end, the two chose a player they were optimistic about but had made some mistakes in the last round. Xian chose a female singer with a nice voice, who was eliminated because she was too nervous on stage. Xian decided to give her another opportunity. As they chose singers, the audience began to leave the hall, while the judges took a rest. Well, the two groups of mentors have made their own choices. The next round is the 5-hour challenge. Chengzu, the director-in-chief, stood on the stage and spoke loudly to the camera. Every contestant has to create songs in 5 hours, no matter whether they are adaptations or new songs. During the creation period, they can ask their mentors for help. 5 hours later, there will be a competition in each team. In this round, only 5 members of each team can stay. This time, 100 media reviewers will evaluate the competition. All the individual studios are ready. Please go to a studio. Upon hearing Chengzu's words, all the people who stayed were in an uproar. There were 6 people in Gufan's team, and they should eliminate one, but both Xuodong's team and Xian's team had 7 singers. That was to say, 2 people in each group would be eliminated. The problem was that the evaluation right was not in the hands of the mentors, but in the hands of the hundreds of reviewers. It depended on the individual performance of the singers. As for the singers, most of them were nervous. We only have 5 hours to create and adapt, which is too difficult. Fortunately, a small number of them had made some preparation in advance, and there were no difficulties for them as long as it was determined along with a tutor. This part of the competition was also a test of the singer's sense of preparation in advance or the ability to produce on site. For example, fortunately, I made some preparations. Sun Donging was complacent. Taking a look at Tong Jiejie, he said, "Little sister, come on, don't get eliminated before me." Tong Jiejie rolled her eyes at him. It will be a personal show of Guru Cute again. Yan grinned and said, "I'm looking forward to the songs created by Guru Cute. Let's try our best." Zhang Han chuckled and nodded at them. Everyone went to their own studio. In fact, these 5 hours were boring for Zhang Han. 4 mentors were chatting in the lounge. They decided to give the singers an hour to think and then go back and help them. This program is really becoming more and more cruel. The singers are all good now, but someone will leave next. Xuodong sighed and laughed. But that's what the game is like, and there is only one winner. There is no doubt who will win the championship, right? Gufan spread out his hands and said. It depends, Xian replied. Zhang Han had talked with her before. When the competition reached a certain level, he would choose to quit. He just came to have fun with Xian on this program, not to get first place, which couldn't attract Zhang Han at all. He would like to give this chance to others who wanted it. Xian's words surprised the others. There's only one possibility. He doesn't want to, Gufan said confidently. Yes. Xuodong and Diehua echoed him. After chatting for a while, they rushed to each student's room for assistance. In total, there were 20 people, 15 of whom chose to adapt a song, and only 5 of whom chose to sing new songs. There was a large gap between the two numbers. 5 hours passed quickly. Xian sat in Zhang Han's studio for no more than 10 minutes. She had been helping other trainees before entering Zhang Han's room. But 5 hours later, It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Knowing that Zhang Han was sure to go back to pick up Meng Meng, Xian took the lead in finding Chengzu and chatted with him briefly. Therefore, now the internal competition begins. The first singer is I'm Cute, the strongest dark horse of the season. Welcome. With Chengzu's words, Zhang Han went on stage. Hello, everyone, let's get started. Zhang Han simply said hello. He didn't even chat before singing, but just started the performance directly. Soon after, the accompaniment was heard. Zhang Han sang in a low voice. In the beginning, his voice was not special, but he had the ability to make people sink into it. I like the way you look when you're angry. I like your little stubbornness. I like you. Without you, I would be short of oxygen. I still remember that in the street in the early morning, it suddenly began to rain, and I gently held you in my arms. That's how I love you. Please don't doubt it. I'd like to give you all of myself. The song was greeted with cheers and screams. It is still a love song. He is excellent. Xuanhuan kept applauding for Zhang Han while looking at Xian curiously. He felt that the relationship between the two should be closer than he thought. But he only guessed and was not prepared to speak out his views. The more you know him, the more you touch him, the more you admire him. He's amazing. Fan almost became Zhang Han's fan. Not only them, but also the jury was conquered by Zhang Han's songs. This led to Zhang Han's rapid rise in the number of votes at the time of voting, far surpassing others. I'm Cute was the name at the top of the screen. Finally, 2 singers in Xian's team were eliminated. One of them was the singer who had just been resurrected. The other familiar singers were still in the team. Zhang Han, Luz, Sun Dongying, Yan, and Tong Jiejia. After the announcement of the results, Zhang Han left directly and returned to Hong Kong to pick up Meng Meng from school. Today's show was over after the elimination competition in other groups. The next day, the program group again gave the singers a surprise. Originally, next was going to be the team competition, and 5 members of each team would sing a song together, but the program group temporarily decided to add a round of in-team elimination, and 1 member of each team will be eliminated in the competition. After that, the mentors will lead their team to compete against each other. The songs of the in-team elimination are now in the drawing box, and 3 mentors will draw lots to select the songs for their team. In-team competition again. Xuanhuan forced to smile. He could do nothing but go to draw lots. So did the other mentors. Xian got a Cantonese song named Depression, which should be very difficult, but Luz and Sun Dongying had language advantages, for they both knew Cantonese. Only Yan didn't know Cantonese very well. Therefore, when he was singing, Yan misread the pronunciation of 2 words, which led to his unstable rhythm in the latter part of the song. It made him desperate. He knew that he would be eliminated. Sun Dongying's performance was not the best, but he made no mistakes. In contrast, Luz and Tong Jiejia performed better. As for Zhang Han, he successfully sang the most difficult part of the song and showed his strength again. However, in this round of competition, the singers who would be eliminated were chosen by the mentors of their respective teams. It's very sad news. I don't want any of you to leave the stage, but the competition is cruel, and I have to make a choice. Xian pursed her lips and said, everyone's performance was very good, but there were still some mistakes. Hearing Xian's words, everyone knew who would be eliminated. Yan. But before she finished speaking, Zhang Han cleared his throat and smiled. I want to say something. Swish, swish, swish. All the other singers were clear about what would happen. Their hearts suddenly shrank. Xuanhuan and Diehua stood up involuntarily. From the audition of the program to now, I think this show has been very successful. It will add some fresh blood to the singing industry. Many people need this opportunity, but I don't need it. So I'm going to give up my place. Of course, I want to state that I'm busy, and I need time to handle my own business. So, Zhang Han chuckled and looked at Han, who was crying. Don't be so sentimental. Zhang Han comforted him. Zhang Han finished speaking, but the whole room was in an uproar. Many people couldn't believe their eyes. They couldn't believe what had happened. But that was the truth. Chapter 525, Earning Some Extra Income. Well, the look on Xuanhuan's face was pretty bitter. At this moment, he simply did not know what he should say. In his opinion, Han Yang's leaving made the whole competition more uncertain, as well as more interesting. However, on the other hand, he wanted to see how Han Yang would perform in the next round. That was because Han Yang was so amazing that if he still participated in the competition, he definitely would be in first place, which was beyond doubt. Consequently, at this moment, he felt paradoxical as well as complicated. Well, this is too. He opened his mouth and did not say anything at all in the end. Even Chief Director Cheng Zhu was somewhat confused and thought, what, Han Yang is going to quit? At this moment, the other trainees were somewhat astounded, many of whom said one after another, the guru is going to abdicate. Did I hear it wrong? Why did he do this? Hiss. A few others were astounded at first. After that, their eyes brightened up. They thought that if Han Yang was going to quit the competition, it indicated that they had a chance to fight for the championship. With the 4 mentors and Han Yang's publicity promotion, the first season of Chinese New Voice was pretty powerful in training celebrities. If they could win first place, it would be pretty good for their future development. However, as for Yan, who was on the verge of being eliminated, he was at a loss at this moment. Both his eyes were red. He held the microphone and choked with sobs as he said, based on the communications over these days, we all know who the guru is. Though the guru is short-spoken on usual days, Guru Cute is my idol in my heart. I did perform poorly today and Guru Cute could not help me pay the price for it. I understand that the guru wants to help cultivate new talents, but I don't want to accept it. I want to experience the moment when the guru takes the first place. Thanks, thanks. As Zhang Han heard his words, he smiled helplessly and looked at Xian while saying, as for choosing talents, I will respect the mentor's decision. As he talked, he made an eye gesture at Xian. At this moment, all the people on the scene fixed their eyes on Xian. Feeling somewhat complicated, Xian pursed her red lips and picked up the microphone. It was not after she had been silent for a while that she said slowly, I know him well and vice versa. As she spoke, all the people on the scene felt nervous. It seemed that they had sensed something. Xian went on talking, so my decision is also a tacit thought of ours. As for the one who is going to be eliminated in my group in the park competition this time, it is Han Yang. As Xian made this announcement, all the people on the scene were excited. This was the first time that Xian had acknowledged Zhang Han's identity in public. This moment was quite shocking. Even Xuanhuan, Diehua, and Gafan stood up involuntarily and walked to the stage. Xian also stood up and walked over. At this moment, the situation on the stage was out of control. The other 2 groups of trainees also stood up and ran in the direction of the stage. Even Chief Director Cheng Zhu stood on one side of the stage quietly. All the people on the scene encircled Zhang Han, saluting him. Especially Yan, who was in tears. Only he could understand this kind of complicated mood. Even Tong Jiejie, Sun Donging, and Lu's sighed emotionally. Yan edged forward and hugged Zhang Han as he said, Guru. Zhang Han found it funny and did not know whether he should laugh or cry. However, he could understand Yan somehow. He patted Yan on the back as he said, all right, work harder in the future. It's okay if you don't get first place as long as you have tried your best and don't feel regretful. Following that, he stared at the group of people, including Sun Donging and Luz, as he said, the same for you, keep fighting. You finally are willing to admit that. Xuanhuan walked up close to Zhang Han and said smilingly. Following that, he said solemnly, Han Yang, not only are you talented, but also your behavior has made me admire you so much. Well, here it is, since you're leaving this place, there will be less amazement on this stage. However, hope remains here. Anyway, we respect your way. Feeling somewhat dizzy, Gufan stroked his chest and expressed his thoughts as he said, I have nothing to say, nor do I know how to express my thoughts. And the other trainees also issued a statement one after another. However, since the competition needed to go on, Zhang Han said farewell to them and was prepared to leave. In the end, Xian hugged him and whispered in Zhang Han's ears as she said, you are relaxed this time, wait for me at home. Zhang Han could not help himself as he asked, is there any reward? However, Xian broke free from his arms, her beautiful eyes blinked. Zhang Han grinned, waved his hands to everyone, and left the stage. During this period, a camera followed Zhang Han to the outside of the venue and followed him to the car. It stopped filming as the car disappeared in the far distance of the street. From the perspective of the program division, this might be a legendary departure, which was destined to be clipped into the program's on-air video. After Zhang Han left, the atmosphere on the whole stage was somewhat gloomy. Staring at many trainees, Xuanhuan encouraged them as he said, the competition still goes on. Did you see that? Even the guru, Han Yang, left. Though he did so voluntarily, it indicates that anything is possible. Admittedly, what Xuanhuan had said struck the heartstrings of many trainees. The willingness to fight was ignited again. The next team on stage is the team of Gufan. Please welcome them. The show went on as usual and the elimination continued. However, Zhang Han could not see them anymore. As the competition came to an end, all the participants were fighting for the ranking. There were probably 5 more days to go before the competition would end. Zhang Han's mission of accompanying playing was completed more or less, in a perfect way. Since he had worked hard in the daylight, he could unlock the reward at night, which was quite a pleasure for him. However, he would pay more attention to Luz as well as Sundonging and prepare a few suitable songs. Since it was pretty early, Zhang Han and Zhao Feng went back to the villa that they had rented. After Zhao Feng sat down, he asked, Master, should we go back to New Moon Bay? Zhang Han glimpsed at the time and replied, let's wait for Xian, she will finish her work at about 3 o'clock. Originally, Zhang Han had thought he could stay in the villa leisurely the whole afternoon. However, it did not occur to him that his mobile would ring 2 minutes later. It was a call from a strange local mobile number. Zhang Han glimpsed at the mobile and picked up the call. Director Zhang, hello, this is Director Bai from the National Security Agency of Shenzhen. I'm sorry to take the liberty of calling you, help you don't mind. Zhang Han asked directly, how can I help? Here is the thing, the local old master of the Jia clan, Jia Xinghua, was stricken with a strange illness all of a sudden. He only woke up for 1 hour every day, whose mental status was the same as that of a lunatic. The period when the illness struck lay between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. Though his family members had employed many helpers, they all could do nothing to help. They turned to me later on and I found out that it seemed the yin soul had been attached to Jia Xinghua's body. Strangely, though I had annihilated the weak yin soul 5 times, the yin soul would return to be reborn within less than 1 hour, which could not be annihilated. It is somewhat weird. I heard that Director Zhang was accompanying Mrs. Zhang recording a show in Shenzhen. Consequently, I thought of you and called to ask if you knew how to deal with this kind of situation. Director Zhang, rest assured that if you have a solution, the Jia clan is willing to take out 5 kinds of heaven-grade treasures, 30 kinds of earth-grade treasures, and hundreds of kinds of profound-grade treasures as a reward. Director Bai explained the series of situations quite clearly. Upon hearing his words, Zhang Han was silent for a while. This kind of situation could be divided into many types, which was almost always caused by the yin soul, such as the syngenetic soul, subparent soul, and some peculiar yin souls. However, since Director Bai could do nothing with the yin soul, it indicated that the strength of this kind of soul was above the Grand Master early stage at least. Zhang Han was silent for a while then replied, I can go there to check it out. Great. As Director Bai heard Zhang Han's words, the way he talked showed that he felt somewhat happy. He replied in a hurry, I wonder where you are now, Director Zhang. I can send someone to pick you up. Zhang Han replied, just tell me your address. Director Bai said, all right, it is not far from the place where Mrs. Zhang is filming the show. It will take half an hour to get here by driving. Just keep driving south to Limon Road in Villa District, Yongtai City. I will wait for you at the entrance. After that, Zhang Han hung up the phone. Zhao Feng asked curiously, Master, what's up? Let's go to earn some extra income. Zhang Han smiled casually and said, let's go out to Limon Road in Villa District of Yongtai City. Zhao Feng responded, okay. They went out and got in the Mercedes-Benz S600. Zhao Feng drove south all the way. Less than half an hour later, they arrive at Villa District of Yongtai City. At this moment, more than dozens of people were standing at the entrance of Villa District. Director Bai stood at the foremost, after he saw Zhang Han getting out of the car. He walked forward in a hurry and greeted Zhang Han as he said, Director Zhang, welcome, welcome, thanks so much. Zhang Han shook his head slightly as he said, you are welcome. Without those natural precious materials, which Director Bai had mentioned, he would not have come over here. Consequently, he viewed this as a kind of deal. Hello, Grandmaster Zhang. The middle-aged man who was beside Director Bai said respectfully, I am the patriarch of the Jia clan, Mr. Zhang. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here. Whether the thing succeeds or not, I will give you a satisfactory answer on behalf of the Jia clan, Mr. Zhang. As he finished his words, other people on the scene also greeted Zhang Han one after another. The title of Zhang Hanyang was also quite well known in Shenzhen, though it was not as strongly influential as it was in Hong Kong. Everyone knew him. Many people in the martial arts world respectfully called him Invincible Grandmaster Merciless Zhang. He was so amazing. Even the Jia clan needed to be respectful to him, including some martial masters of the Jia clan. The expressions on the subordinates, who had been brought by the Jia clan and Director Bai, had much more reverence. Zhang Han looked at his watch and said, you are welcome. Let's go to check on the patient first. Patriarch Jia nodded and said, all right, please come in. They walked inside. As the family members of the Jia clan indicated, the door to Villa District opened. Zhao Feng followed behind them by driving slowly. As they walked inside, they saw there were several lines of fences in the most central part of Villa District. There were quite many stacked houses as well as recreational areas inside, where the Jia clan presided on usual days. It indicated that the strength of the Jia clan was quite strong since it possessed such a manor in the bustling area of downtown. Moreover, to cure the old master, the natural precious materials, which they had consumed, were quantitative resources. They walked into the Jia clan area and walked to the main residence in the most central part. Zhang Han saw the old master of the Jia clan in a spacious bedroom on the second floor. The bedroom was decorated in a somewhat archaic style, whether it was the wardrobe or the decorations on both sides as well as the shelves. They were all made from pure wood. There was an old-styled rocking chair on the balcony. It could be seen that the old master of the Jia clan preferred the previous leisurely life. As for the old master himself, he lay on the bed quietly and looked somewhat pale. The blue veins on his neck were vaguely visible. His breath was pretty detectable. The old master has been like this for 4 consecutive days. He takes neither rice nor water. If this kind of situation continues. Patriarch Jia was somewhat distressed. His voice was somewhat trembling. He acted in this way not just because of his feelings for the old master, though he was on pretty good terms with the old master. If the old master was gone, the situation that the Jia clan was going to face would head for a sudden turn for the worse. Patriarch Jia's wife covered her mouth and choked with sobs as she said, he was quite fine previously, however. He is in such a state all of a sudden. However, Zhang Han did not pay attention to them at all. He fixed his eyes on the old master of the Jia clan. His eyes brightened slightly. He discovered a gentle fragrance permeated his body and looked into it more discreetly. All of a sudden, the old man opened his eyes. His pupils were as small as sesame seeds. He stared at him angrily. Bloodshot strands around his pupils looked like spider webs. A terrifying atmosphere permeated the room. He opened his mouth and his teeth were black. He stared at Zhang Han as if he were staring at his dead core enemy. It seemed that he intended to eat Zhang Han alive. Zhang Han fixed his eyes. It did not occur to him that he would see such a scene while using his soul sense. As others stared at the old master, he looked as he usually did with his eyes closed, who seemed to be resting himself. However, his expression was almost the same as roaring. Zhang Han waved his hands all of a sudden as he said, "King Ming seal." All the people on the scene felt a fair breeze blowing past them. Following that, the grey hairs on the old master's forehead moved slightly and restored calmness. At this moment, the expression on Zhang Han's face changed slightly. The ghost face in the netherworld. It turned out it was this thing. The ghost face in the netherworld was formed by grudging souls, which could clone themselves and were quite special. Meanwhile, the ghost face in the netherworld could be refined and melted into armor to dazzle people's minds. However, based on Zhang Han's observation, he found out by using the suppression of King Ming steel that this thing was only superficially similar to the ghost face in the netherworld. Namely, there was still a long way to go before it was transformed into the ghost face in the netherworld. What made Zhang Han dazzled was that the ghost face in the netherworld could be used to seal Yilong Yuan's golden armor and Mug's demon dancing sword. If he could seal the weapon's aura of being loyal to their masters, it would be much easier for others to use these two holy objects. Namely, he could sell these two holy objects. In that case, Zhang Han could get a double advantage. However, all was still uncertain before he seized the thing in itself of the ghost face. Zhang Han's silence made the others nervous gradually. They were nervous, pretty nervous. Since Grandmaster Zhang was so powerful and had so many tricks, if he could do nothing, the situation would become more difficult. Fortunately, Zhang Han had been silent for only 3 seconds. Following that, he said, "I know how to cure the old master." Hiss. Excellent. We can finally cure the old master. All the family members of the Jia clan exclaimed one after another. However, you need to prepare some heaven-grade treasures, including 3 sunflowers and 2 grams of mind-dazzling dew. Zhang Han listed out abundant treasures that were quite common. They could even locate them in the warehouse of Hong Kong. As Director Bai heard what Zhang Han had said, he patted his chest and said that he would take care of that, making the family members of the Jia clan feel relaxed. "I don't have much time today and will deal with this issue tomorrow. However, you need to tell me accurately about the places he had gone to 1 week before he became unconscious. Director Bai has my mobile number, and you can message me privately once you are done with the investigation. Since I have other things to attend to, I will leave first." Zhang Han said a few words and left as everyone saw him off. Zhang Han drove back to the villa. Xian and Zuf were at home soon after. "Honey, you were eliminated." Xian pouted her mouth as she said, "Originally, I planned to keep you for a few more rounds." Zhang Han smiled and replied, "I don't want to join in the fun with them." He was a plagiarist originally and did not want to take first place in this way. However, if the prize for first place was a 4th stage spirit treasure and 5th stage spirit treasure, it would certainly work for him. However, Xian smiled all of a sudden and said, "An invitation competition will be held later on. You probably will be invited back." "Ah?" The corner of Zhang Han's lips trembled. He said helplessly, "All right. He. Xian covered her mouth and smiled as she said, "It is almost time. We should go home." Consequently, the group got on the helicopter and went back to New Moon Bay. On the chopper, Xian started thinking about Meng Meng's birthday with concern. She pondered it then said, "By the way, we'll just prepare cake and fireworks for Meng Meng's birthday, right? This is the first time that you have celebrated her birthday, so the celebration ceremony can be livelier." Zhao Feng smiled and said, "Mom, rest assured that the so-called fireworks are not ordinary at all. They are all treasures and look much better than ordinary ones." Really? Xian's big eyes blinked. After that, she said with concern, you should not make the ceremony too mystifying. Zhang Han shook his head and said, no, I won't. Then, should we think about other gifts? Consequently, they mumbled and discussed what kinds of memorable gifts they should give Meng Meng. As they talked about topics related to Meng Meng, Zhang Han became talkative. However, though they held a discussion all over again, they did not think of any satisfactory gifts within half an hour. After returning to the company, Zhang Han drove Xian to St. Kindergarten. This time, they arrived at the entrance of the kindergarten much earlier, at 4:10 p.m. It just so happened that Luxang was also off work, who was walking outside leisurely. Upon seeing Zhang Han, he walked over, opened the door on the passenger side, and got in the car after he got Zhang Han's point. Luxang greeted them smilingly and said, Grandmaster Zhang, Miss Zhang, long time no see. Xian knew Luxang well. She heard from Zhang Han that he was a pretty awesome Grandmaster Strong, who was working in the kindergarten as a janitor because of Lugo. His presence in the kindergarten elevated the security level of the kindergarten several levels. Xian smiled gently and greeted him as she said, Master Lu. Luxang smiled and said, you flatter me, you flatter me. I dare not show off my seniority in front of Grandmaster Zhang. Zhang Han asked, by the way, you showed up in time. I want to sell 2 holy objects. Do you know any place that I can exchange the treasures? Master Lu, exchange the treasure? Of course I know. Luxang nodded and said, in the worldlet, there are some places where multiple sects will cooperate with each other. These places are used for treasure exchanging. However, since the door to the worldlet is not open yet, you should hold on and wait if you are not in a hurry. Grandmaster Zhang, even the troves inside many sects can be used to exchange treasures. Zhang Han nodded and asked, oh, don't they exist in the secular world? If the troves did not exist in the secular world, he planned to sell these 2 treasures, which were loyal to their masters, after the door to the worldlet was open. However, Luxang gave him quite an unexpected answer. He squinted as he said solemnly, there is one place in the secular world where the treasures are much more than those in many sects of the worldlet. The place is called the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. There is no classification of profound grade, earth grade, and heaven grade inside but just simple numbers. 3 represents profound grade, 4 represents earth grade, and 5 represents heaven grade. All in all, 5 is the highest grade. However, every time the Spirit Treasure Pavilion holds an activity, there will be at least 5 holy objects. Their price is too high, which ordinary people can't afford. Luxang continued recollecting as he said, when the Spirit Treasure Pavilion holds an activity, even the forces of the worldlet will take part in it. This is because there are many kinds of treasures. It is said that the owner of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion is a strong master named No Action Immortal. There were several times when someone had made trouble. He had struck out and smacked 8 persons at the Divine Realm level and 2 people at the Earth Realm level to death. After that, nobody dared to make trouble again. Upon hearing the 2 words no action, Zhang Han moved his brows and said, are you talking about Ui? Chapter 526, The Old House of the Jie Clan. Ui. When Zhang Han brought up this name, Luxang was stunned for a moment. He thought about it for a second. Following that, he replied, all I know is that the master of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion is No Action Immortal. However, most of the time, it's not him but his subordinates dressed in white shirts that show up in person. As for Ui, I know nothing about him. The time when he struck out, people only saw the figure of his back. He only made a move, which was said to be pretty powerful. Oh, Zhang Han nodded as he said. Though he felt somewhat dubious, he still thought that the No Action Immortal, whom Luxang had mentioned, would most probably be Ui. On this holy object planet, which was suppressed, some mysteries might indeed exist in the plate of Cultivation World, which this holy object planet was attached to. Otherwise, he would not have been transferred to the Cultivation World at the outset. As far as I know, usually, the Spirit Treasure Pavilion will hold a meeting every 5 years. The meeting location is different every time. For those who can attend the meeting, they should be a Grand Master at least. When the Spirit Treasure Pavilion opened last time, the gate of the small world had not been closed yet, as more than 5 years have passed. The pavilion may open soon, which may happen when the gate of the small world opens or before that. As Xuanhuan spoke, the look on his face was somewhat solemn. He said, after the gate of the small world opens, the world may be in chaos for some time. Over the 5 years, some things might have happened in each small world. As the power is complicatedly interconnected, the pavilion may open before the door of the small world opens. As Xuanhuan went on talking, the atmosphere became heavier gradually. Zhang Han pondered Xuanhuan's words, shook his head, and smiled as he said, I wonder if you know about the relics on Mount He Snow, Master Lu. I have heard a little about them. It is said that 60% of the relics are Class B, which will be confirmed within some more days. After Xuanhuan finished replying to Zhang Han's question, he smiled and said, however, I don't even plan to go to the relic site, as the school is on holiday. Guogo plans to go to hang around in Dubai with a few friends. I need to follow them secretly, since the world outside is such a chaotic one. I feel worried about allowing them to hang about randomly. As Xian heard Xuanhuan's words, she smiled gently and said, Master Lu, you are so considerate. You also care about your dear granddaughter so much. Xuanhuan replied triumphantly, of course, I only have one darling granddaughter. The expression on his face indicated that he was quite proud of his granddaughter, which made Zhang Han feel somewhat empathetic toward him. In Xuanhuan's situation, there was some difference between the daughter and the granddaughter, which was a quite different experience for Zhang Han. Xuanhuan glimpsed at the time and said, my granddaughter is going to leave school soon, since she will go back to my place. I need to go home to cook. By the way, my daughter praised your daughter many times, saying that Meng was among the 3 or 4 extremely smart and clever students in class. Zhang Han laughed in spite of himself as he said, my daughter is quite smart. Ha ha, ha ha, yes, alright, I will go home now. Xian waved her hands smilingly as she said, Master Lu, take care. Xuanhuan got out of the car and went back to the house on the mountain. Generally, mosquitoes, bugs, and reptiles were beyond count in houses where there was grassland and trees were lined. Some poisonous insects might be even there. Though the environment might be good, there might be some shortcomings. However, to the martial artists who were capable of using their tricks, this kind of situation was not an issue at all. Soon after, the bell indicating that class was over rang in the school. Zhang Han got out of the car with quick strides and went into the kindergarten. Meng called out as usual, Papa. The little girl ran swiftly, stretched out her fragile arms when she was halfway, and threw herself into Zhang Han's arms. Every time this kind of situation occurred, a few parents and children in the surrounding area would glance at them from time to time. Quite a few other children acted the same as Meng, who were dependent on their parents. They would rush over upon seeing their parents. As for the children attending the preschool classes of kindergarten, most of them were 3 years old. Meng was older than them by half a year. However, a few children were 4 years old. Frankly, she was still a little girl, who neither cried nor made a scene. Moreover, she was willing to be engaged in her studies, which was quite a huge progress. There was indeed another unexpected surprise today. Look, Papa, my third little red flower, you can promise me 3 requests, Papa. Meng unfolded her little palm in which lay a little red flower peacefully. Everyone who saw her big shining eyes and happy expression could tell that she was very happy at this moment. Since his little girl was happy, Zhang Han also felt happy sincerely. After he got home, he made a sumptuous dinner. As Zhang Han rested himself after having dinner, his father-in-law invited him to play Go together. Ever since he had beaten Patriarch Luo Chengwen last time, Ziqiang was very confident when it came to playing Go. He even made Zhang Han wonder whether he should beat him a few times in order to discourage him. However, upon thinking about it, Zhang Han decided, I can't do that. Consequently, Ziqiang went to rest himself satisfactorily that night. Zhang Han told stories as usual as he said, on a mysterious island, the king of dwarves and the king of elves found a lake in the middle of the island. There was a spring at the bottom of the lake, which was called Everlasting Spring. They fought with the mermaids for the spring water. Though Meng felt confused while listening to this kind of story, she liked to listen to stories while nestling up to her dad. As usual, the little girl fell asleep gradually. Zhang Han took her in his arms and placed her on the small bed. As he saw that Xian also fell asleep, he took the mobile over with little noise. He opened the private message sent over by the Jia clan. The old master of the Jia clan had not gone to many places 1 week before he had become unconscious. He had only gone to 3 places, whose details were specifically listed. Even the owner of the places and a high-definition map was included in the message. Zhang Han glimpsed at the map for a while and fixed his eyes on the Hufing villas located on the eastern side of Shenzhen. Judging from the topography there, some unknown things might exist there, namely, the Yin Soul, whose nature looked a bit like the ghost face in the netherworld. As for the other 2 places, they were both high up in buildings in the lively city. The probability that the Yin Soul would exist there was extremely small. There might be another possibility that the Yin Soul was attached to some kinds of treasures. Consequently, Zhang Han planned to make Hufing Villas his first stop. If it turned out that the Yin Soul did not exist in the Hufing Villas, he would go to the other 2 nearby places conveniently. However, at 9 o'clock the next morning, by the time Zhang Han had arrived in Shenzhen, director by Patriarch Jia, along with dozens of other people were standing at the entrance of the Hufing Villas. Grandmaster Zhang, you are here. Patriarch Jia greeted Zhang Han in a hurry and pointed at the young middle-aged man by his side as he said, he is the manager of the villas, who entertained my father when he was here that day. He remembers all the places my father went to. Zhang Han nodded as he said, okay. Let's walk over the same route that old Master Jia took after he entered the villas. All right, this way please, sir. The manager wiped off the cold sweat and led the way ahead quite nervously. He already knew that something had happened to the old master of the Jia clan. If old Master Jia did run into misfortune, the entire Hufing villas would be in deadly danger right now. Even if there were 10 Hufing villas, they could not withstand the rage of the Jia clan. Master Jia and Master Wang walked up from here. They walked leisurely all the way and I followed behind them. They stayed in this area for less than 1 minute, appreciating the flowers and praising them with a few words. After that, the manager tried his best to recollect as he led the group to walk inside. They stopped at the luxurious hot spring room at last, which was their last stop. Zhang Han asked, is that all? The manager confirmed as he said, yes. They only went to these places. Zhang Han closed his eyes and became silent for 2 seconds. The extension range of his soul sense reached out thousands of meters. Even though he had extended his soul sense deep into the ground more than 200 meters, he did not feel anything unusual at all. As a result, he blurted out a few words. This is not the place. Let's go to the next one. Everyone went down the mountain and joined the motorcade that the Jia clan had prepared and went to the 25th floor of a commercial building. Zhang Han observed for a few minutes and gave out an answer. This is also not the place. In this case, should Master Jia have met with a mishap in the last location? However, he got to the last private club and walked around it once. Feeling confused, Zhang Han still blurted out, still not the place. Well. The look on the Patriarch Jia's face became somewhat ghastly all of a sudden. The cold sweat trickled continuously. Patriarch Jia wiped off a handful of cold sweat as he asked, so is there no other way? Zhang Han asked very assertively, if we can't find the place, we have no way out. I think he must have gone to other places. There are no other places. We investigated more than dozens of times and it turned out that Master Jia had gone to these 3 places only. What should we do? At this moment, Patriarch Jia became somewhat anxious. However, as he finished his words, the look on his wife's face suddenly changed. She said, there is one more place. Patriarch Jia asked in a hurry, where is it? His wife answered in a hurry, the old master. Old master also went to the old house of our family once. The old house? Yes, there is an old house. However, how could old master have met with a mishap in the old house? All of a sudden, everyone, including Patriarch Jia and all the members of the Jia clan, felt chills up and down their spines. They had gone to the old house. If there was something inside, they would feel somewhat spine-chilling upon thinking of it. So horrible. Zhang Han said peacefully, then, let's go there and have a look. Everyone got in the motorcade once again and went to an ancient Xuanhuan this time, which was located at the rear side of the villain area of the Jia clan. The houses in the Xuanhuan were somewhat shabby. As they walked into the courtyard, Patriarch Jia became bewildered and surprised as he said, how come this place is filled with dry straw? Moreover, why did these flowers and trees become withered? There should always be someone coming here to do the cleaning every week, right? Director Bai said in a deep voice, the problem may lie here. That was because he felt strong and gloomy yin chi at this moment. Based on its strength, the yin soul might be at the Grand Master late stage. This kind of yin soul was extremely tricky. It would take them great effort to eradicate it. Consequently, he stared at Zhang Han subconsciously and asked, Grandmaster Zhang, should I send some helpers here and take it down directly? Though he thought Grandmaster Zhang was invincible among all the Grandmasters, it would be best if they could take the Yin Soul down once and for all while dealing with this kind of Yin Soul. He also did not know what Zhang Han's cards were, nor was he clear about whether Zhang Han was proficient in dealing with the Yin Soul. He was afraid that if Zhang Han acted rashly, the Yin Soul would be alerted and scared away. In that case, it would be difficult to encircle and annihilate the Yin Soul once again. Then, old Master Jia might not be saved. No need. Zhang Han fixed his eyes without ever looking at Director Bai, looked straight ahead, and shook his head slightly. Director Bai asked again, should we prepare? Originally, he planned to ask whether Zhang Han needed to prepare some treasures or not so that he could send someone to fetch them. However, it did not occur to him that before he finished his words, he would see a green light twinkle in Zhang Han's eyes. Following that, Zhang Han stretched his right hand out and said, King Ming Seal. Zoom. An invisible power permeated the front side of the old house. Swish. The door of the old house was shattered the next moment. It seemed that everyone on the scene saw a gigantic ghost face looming there. Even a gust of cold wind blew through the whole house. The coldness was chilling. However, this kind of feeling was fleeting. The cold wind dispersed the next second. The sunlight seemed to become brighter. They saw that Zhang Han held his palm and said calmly, it's done. Chapter 527. Meng is going to celebrate her birthday, is it? Is it over? Director Bai was at a loss, feeling confused. He was pretty sure that he had sensed the aura of the ghost face quite accurately a moment ago, which was quite strong. The ghost should be at the Grand Master late stage. However, the capability of the Yin Soul was quite tricky. If it were him, he thought he could take it, but it would require quite strenuous efforts. However, before he had time to stare at the ghost face again, it disappeared right away. Was the ghost face beaten to death? Patriarch Jia asked somewhat dubiously. Grandmaster Zhang, so is the issue solved? How about my father? Zhang Han nodded and replied, he will wake up after we go back and treat him. As Zhang Han finished his words, the atmosphere on the scene became much more relaxed in an instant. Their backbone was finally saved. Consequently, everyone headed homeward. After they got back to the main bedroom of the main residence, they found that the old master of the Jia clan's complexion became rosy again. However, he still did not wake up. That was because the ghost face was still attached to his body. Since the ghost face had been attached to the body for a few days, his body and soul would be affected. Moreover, since the old master of the Jia clan was nearly 80 years old, he would run into a dangerous situation. Various treasures were placed on one side of the bed. Zhang Han waved his right hand. All the covers of the boxes were opened and the treasures rose slowly. As Zhang Han clenched his right hand, the spirit treasures exploded one after another, transforming themselves into threads of colorful mists, which wormed themselves into the old master of the Jia clan's body from 9 acupoints, including the top of his head and his chest. Hiss! Whoa! As the last mist disappeared into the old master's body, he inhaled all of a sudden and exhaled relaxedly. Following that, he opened his eyes slowly. Dad. Patriarch Jia walked forward in a hurry and asked anxiously, "How do you feel, Dad? Do you feel uncomfortable?" "Ah?" The old master's eyes were somewhat turbid, which was characteristic of the elderly. It seemed that his brain had not gotten back to normal yet. He glanced around and said confusedly, "Why are so many people here? What time is it? Why haven't you started having a meal?" Upon hearing his words, everyone on the scene did not know whether they should laugh or cry. After they united for a few minutes, Patriarch Jia stood in front of Zhang Han and Director Bai as he said quite enthusiastically and politely, "Thanks so much, Director Bai and Grand Master Zhang, many thanks, kindly walk out with me." Consequently, Zhang Han, Zhao Feng, and Director Bai, as well as his two subordinates, followed Patriarch Jia out. As they turned right and turned left, they arrived at a basement of a villa. All the people saw those natural precious materials that Patriarch Jia had promised. To save the old master, the Jia clan had used up almost all the treasures in the trove of their family as well as that of the martial arts world. In his opinion, even if he needed to double the resources, the old master's life was the most important. Zhang Han glanced around and saw that the treasures were of higher quantity than what the Jia clan had promised. However, he did not take more than what he should take. Instead, he waved his hands and put the treasures that Patriarch Jia had promised into the space ring. At this moment, Patriarch Jia smiled and saluted Director Bai as he said, "Director Bai, kindly take the remaining treasures, which represents my appreciation." Upon hearing his words, Director Bai was at a loss. He smiled and said, "Patriarch Jia, you are too polite. I won't take the treasures. You should prepare more nutritious materials for the old master recently. Feel free to contact me if you have any issues later on. You should be most thankful to Director Zhang this time." "Yes, I agree." Patriarch Jia nodded continuously and saluted Zhang Han as he said, "Director Zhang, words fail me when I try to express my heartfelt gratitude. I will bear your kindness this time in mind." Upon hearing his words, Zhang Han smiled and shook his head. Following that, as the group of people including Director Bai and all the family members of Patriarch Jia saw him off, he left the old house of the Jia clan. Before Zhang Han got in the car, Director Bai changed the look on his face, walked to the side of Zhang Han, and said, "I wonder if you know anything about the relic sites that are to be opened on Mount He Snow in northeast China, Director Zhang? I have heard a little about it." "Then, do you plan to go there, Director Zhang?" Zhang Han nodded and said, "I probably will be there." Director Bai smiled as he said, "The C-grade relics also have great exploration value. Moreover, it is much safer." Zhang Han asked, "Is it already confirmed that the relics are C-grade?" Director Bai said slowly, "A piece of news came from the other side at about 8 o'clock this morning, saying that it is confirmed that the relics are C-grade. However, this time, among all the local forces, you should be cautious of North Tiger Gaik Singkong, who has stopped being isolated from the outside world. It is said that he is rough and sometimes moody. It is unknown whether other strong masters will be there or not. Is it that Gaik Singkong again? Though northeast China was far away from here, The news that he had stopped being isolated from the world had already spread. It could be seen how locally influential he was. Zhang Han frowned slightly as he replied, "It is nothing but that Geixingkong." Since this name had been mentioned from time to time and they had talked about his deeds in a somewhat solemn way, it indicated that his counterpart was pretty awesome. But so what? Zhang Han had his haughtiness. Up until now, never had he viewed anybody as a powerful enemy. Whether it was Yi Longyuan, Shi Fenwu, Mugs, Emperor King, or that Geixingkong, they could be indeed called talents even if they were in the cultivation world. Though the successors of the talents showed up one after another, few of them could be counted as evil. However, it seemed that Zhang Han had beheaded countless talents among the evil ones. In Chinese writing, only 2 characters represented those powerful ones. As for the titles, such as talents, the most powerful talents, evil ones, and so on, they just had pretty good potential. However, as Zhang Han finished his words, his Director Bai felt a coldness creeping over his teeth. Though he felt somewhat weird in secret, he felt somewhat enlightened. Though Geixingkong had prevailed through their times, those times had passed. Though those elders all knew that Geixingkong was extraordinarily brave and invincible, what about merciless Zhang? According to Master Ji, he was an invincible Grand Master. As long as Geixingkong did not make a breakthrough to the divine realm, he was not necessarily a rival of Zhang Han Yang. As Director Bai figured it out, he shook his head somewhat emotionally as he said, "Director Zhang, then let's say farewell to each other now. Thanks for your help. If you have any issues in the future, Director Zhang, feel free to notify me." Zhang Han smiled and replied, "Okay." After that, he got in the car with Zhao Feng as the group including Director Bai saw them off. Director Bai mumbled gently as he said, "Zhang Han Yang is amazing." His subordinate echoed him, "I agree. Currently, there are few people in the world at the divine realm. It can be said that before the gate of the small world opens, Grand Master Zhang is almost invincible. The way I see it, his state of mind is the most horrible, so is his trick. Till now, nobody can see what his cards are after fighting many times. He is the most horrible in the way that his tricks emerge endlessly." Several people sighed with emotion. After Zhang Han came back to the villa that he had rented, he got busy. He went into the bedroom and sat cross-legged on the bed. He held the golden armor in his left hand and demon dancing sword in his right hand. The ghost face in the netherworld. Shake. Suppress. Formation. Seal the soul. Swish. As Zhang Han carried out his tricks, the ghost face was divided into 2 parts and transformed into 2 thick black fogs, whose size was the same as that of the palm. However, it appeared to be in the form of the ghost face. The black fog rushed at the golden armor and demon dancing sword respectively. The moment they clashed against each other, zoom. Golden light shone on the golden armor all of a sudden. The golden light was Yi Longyuan's aura of being loyal to the master, which could not be more mystifying. If the masters were at almost the same level, in this case, unless the owner of the treasure was annihilated and beheaded, never would others fully exercise the power of the treasure. On the other hand, as the ghost face touched the demon dancing sword, clash. The sword scabbard shook and stretched downward continuously. It seemed that the demon dancing sword wanted to break free from the scabbard. However, as Zhang Han's thoughts worked, the ghost face sealed the golden armor and demon dancing sword continuously. 10%, 20%. At last, as Zhang Han fully exerted his tricks, the seal was 80% finished, completely suppressing the interconnection between the golden armor and the demon dancing sword and their masters. Only the masters of these 2 treasures could sense the seal when they touched the original body of the treasures. They could only unlock the seal by cooperating with the treasures. However, when others used the treasures, they could feel nothing at all. Since the seal was 80% finished, it meant the user of the treasures could utilize 80% of the capabilities, which was quite objective. In other words, these 2 treasures were ripe and ready for sale. The trip to northeast China this time may be a good opportunity. Zhang Han glimpsed at the golden armor and demon dancing sword, exerted his mind, and put the treasures back into the space ring. He glimpsed at his watch and found that it was already 2:30 p.m. The competition of Chinese New Voice was still hotly going on. Yan left the stage because of the park competition between the teams. Tong Jiejie was pretty good at both the stage performance and tone color. With Zhang Han's and Ziyan's help, Luz and Sun Donging adapted 2 hot songs and went into the next round stably. However, as the competition went on, only 8 strong trainees were left, with 3 in Ziyan's team, 2 in Gafan's team, and 3 in Xiaodong and Diehua's team. Sun Donging was already satisfied that he was among the 8 powerful trainees. The current situation was not as simple as to give his fans an explanation, which was out of his expectations. However, the reality did not happen by accident. There were no inside stories in the following fight. Everything depended on the trainees' performance. It turned out that Sun Donging was not among the top 5 trainees. After Zhang Han left the show, the championship was claimed by another dark horse, Tong Jiejie. Second place was taken by a trainee from Gafan's team, while a trainee from Xiaodong's team got 3rd place, and Luz got the 4th position, which could be counted as a perfect ending. According to the show's procedure, the program division decided to hold an ending concert for the first season of Chinese New Voice. Over the phone, Zhang Han directly refused upon hearing the words as he said, "December 3rd? No, I don't have time." What a joke. It was Wednesday, December 3rd, which was also the date when his little princess celebrated her birthday. Chief Director Cheng Zi coughed gently and asked, "Then, I wonder when Mr. Han Yang will be available. How about the day after December 3rd? Is December 4th okay for you? The time between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. on December 4th works for me." "Okay, the show will start at 11 a.m., which will last 1.5 hours. After that, there will be a luncheon, which will mark a perfect ending to the first season." "Okay." They held a simple communication. After that, Zhang Han consented. Since Ziyan had communicated with Zhang Han about this in advance and Zhang Han had known the details, he just discussed the schedule with Cheng Hao. It was clear that except for the mentors, Zhang Han was the only one whom the program division had taken the initiative to call to discuss the schedule with. Several days flashed by. Soon, it was December 3rd, the day Meng celebrated her birthday. Chapter 528, Whose Birthday Is It? At 6 o'clock in the early morning, Zhang Han and Ziyan were lying in the spacious bed. Meng was sleeping soundly on the small bed. All of a sudden, a breeze seemed to blow through the netting around the bed, making them flutter rhythmically. As the netting fluttered, it began to tremble slightly. Shards of azure sun rays started to permeate around Zhang Han's body. The look on his face was slightly white and became pale gradually. All of this happened due to the cloud clusters above the soul sense sea, which were making trouble. The cloud clusters were stretched continuously by Zhang Han. However, he always kept some distance between the cloud clusters so that the cloud clusters did not converge. As the saying goes, cumulus clouds lead to rain. That was the time he would make a breakthrough. However, if his strength did not make a breakthrough to the innateness level, the breakthrough of his soul sense would backfire. Even though the strength of Zhang Han's current soul sense almost reached the middle stage of innateness. However, he could not make a breakthrough, nor could he allow the clouds to culminate into rain. All he could do was suppress them continuously. He stretched the cloud clusters and contained his state to the level of Grand Master late stage. However, it seemed that the clouds were not obedient. As Zhang Han stretched the clouds, every cloud was amplified from time to time. Although 1 second of change time might be petty, every hour and every moment would converge the same way as the trickles converged into the sea. Zhang Han was also under great pressure. As Zhang Han cultivated himself under this kind of situation, he found out gradually that the size of the soul sense sea did not function anymore. Even the size of the cloud clusters was almost 10 times that of the soul sense sea beneath. Though the size of the soul sense sea was limited, the cloud cluster stretched continuously. At last, on this morning, as Zhang Han finished his cultivation, he found all of a sudden that the cloud clusters could not be somewhat pressed down anymore, even if it was under the same situation as normal days. Flashes of lightning spread continuously in the middle of the clouds. There was only one flash of thunderous lightning the first time. Until now, Zhang Han had estimated that hundreds of thunderous lightning strikes were flashing at the same time, making Zhang Han's soul sense sea look like a scene out of Doomsday. What the hell is going on? Zhang Han just could not understand, and he thought, am I destined to be stricken by the lightning all my life? He had been stricken to pieces by the divine thunder over the sky in his previous life. His soul sense sea was f-king filled with thunderous lightning. As for how the thunderous lightning affected Zhang Han, it went on like this. Whenever there was thunderous lightning, if Zhang Han was caught off guard, he would feel that a boom rang off in his head. Now there were hundreds of thunderous lightning strikes, which was no joke at all. It could not work at all if the current situation goes on. Zhang Han pondered in secret and thought of a way at last, using the trick of the 7 luminaries and the wind blowing to open up the soul sense. 7 luminaries represented the names of 7 planets in total, namely, the Sun, the Moon, Taebaek, Jupiter, the Morning Star, the Dazzling, and Saturn. However, something was interesting about their positions, which corresponded to the 7 most important points of a set of tricks. Consequently, Zhang Han utilized his spiritual force, soul sense, and the strength of the flesh and blood and converged them into the points in the parts where his 7 luminaries lay inside his body. The points glowed inside Zhang Han's body and looked like the bright sun. The next moment, the 7 points converged continuously and were transformed into a gust of breeze. More interestingly, besides the breeze, there was an exquisite whistle. All the energy was dispersed inside Zhang Han's body. However, the sound of the breeze rushed into his soul sense sea directly. Boom! As the sound rang off, the soul sense sea began to expand. However, at the same time, Zhang Han's Danshan was trembling. It could be said that this kind of secretive trick was a dangerous trick looming between the edge of life and death. However, Zhang Han had the bottom chi, which came from his 10-inch Danshan. As his Danshan trembled and shook continuously, his soul sense sea kept expanding. However, the look on Zhang Han's face became much paler. At last, 60 seconds later, boom! A crisp sound rang from his Danshan. Zhang Han retrieved the energy in a hurry and quit while he was ahead. At the same time, the size of his soul sense sea was expanded 1 time over. Zhang Han thought, clouds. In this case, the extra clouds represent the possibilities. The thousands of clouds are not a destination at all. Split. Zhang Han's spiritual sense of energy engulfed the cloud clusters continuously. Clatter. The clouds were divided into 2 one after another. The quantity rose from 1,000 to 2,000 in an instant. The traction, which only the clouds could sense, was instantly much weaker than it had been a moment ago. However, Zhang Han found that as the quantity of the clouds increased, he still needed to pay attention to them and control the distance between them from time to time. The cloud clusters are divided into 2 halves of 1,000 each, which are double that of the perfect building base. All of a sudden, Zhang Han opened his eyes. A green light flashed in his eyes. He was pretty sober, feeling that the starting point of his cultivation this life was much higher. Though he had not reached the stage of innateness, he possessed the 10-inch Danshan and 2,000 clouds in his soul sense sea. All of these. Zhang Han slowly turned around and looked at Xian tenderly. It did not occur to him that all of these were credited to Xian. Since he had gotten such a starting point, though there was not much difference as to his current strength, his road to the future promotion would be much easier. It seemed that before he could understand some things, he needed to overcome the 9-stage calamities and tread the path to the fairies. He stared at Meng Meng, who was sleeping soundly, rose gently, and went to the kitchen to cook breakfast. This was because he knew that today was Meng Meng's birthday. Consequently, Ziqiang and Zhixiniu stayed in the castle and lived on the second floor. Just like Zhang Han, they were celebrating the birthday of the little princess for the first time. As a result, they were also prepared. It seemed that except for Xian and Zuf, it was the first time that others had celebrated the little girl's birthday. Soon after at 7 a.m., Meng Meng woke up, rose confusedly, and glimpsed around. She said, "Papa went to cook breakfast." The little girl crawled off the bed, got on her feet, and ran to the big bed and Xian's side as she said, "Mama, grandfather's son is up." Xian responded and said, "Huh." It was not until 5 seconds later that she opened her eyes. After Xian stayed in bed with Meng Meng for another 5 minutes, both of them were awake. Xian smiled gently and said, "Let's wash up. After that, I will make you look beautiful, Meng Meng." Meng Meng's big eyes brightened up all of a sudden. She asked, "To look beautiful, are we going out to have fun?" Meng Meng had heard last night that her mama had called Teacher Lu to ask for a day's leave. Xian held Meng Meng's tender hands and walked to the washing room as she said, "Where do you want to go to have fun, Meng Meng?" Meng Meng lifted her head and said expectantly, "I want to go swimming, to see the small fishes and big ones. I want to go to Ocean Park." Xian stretched out her other hand and rubbed Meng Meng's delicate nose as she said, "All right, then let's go to Ocean Park." "Great, we are going to have fun at Ocean Park, Mama, you are great, Mama, kiss me." Meng Meng was so happy, her big crystal eyes were bright and piercing. She stretched out her tender arms towards Xian. After Xian held her in her arms, the little princess kissed her on her cheeks several times consecutively before she stopped kissing her. After Xian put Meng Meng on the ground, Meng Meng ran to the kitchen joyfully. She ran while exclaiming, "Papa, Papa, we are going to Ocean Park to have fun today." As Zhang Han heard Meng Meng's naive, melodious, and cheerful voice, his face was brimmed with smiles. He stopped frying the vegetables, turned his head back, and glanced at the entrance of the kitchen. After he saw Meng Meng, he smiled and said, "Then, we'll set out after breakfast." "Ho ho ho, Mama, we are going out for fun after breakfast." Meng Meng ran to Xian joyfully and went into the bathroom happily. After they were done washing up, they went back into the bedroom and starting dressing themselves up. Zhang Han was somewhat speechless. After he made breakfast, he stood at the door and reminded them as he said, "Well, your hairstyle and makeup will both be undone after you go in the water. Even so, we will insist on going out beautifully, right, Meng Meng?" Though Meng Meng was little, she was conscious of beauty. "Of course," she replied assertively, "right." On these days, Meng Meng also understood one point, which was that even her papa had consented to many things. However, if her mama did not say yes, her father's consent did not work at all. However, as long as her mama said yes, there would not be any issues at all. Many things referred to things like buying snacks, going out somewhere for fun, and so on. In a lot of families, one of the parents would govern the children and the other one would spoil the children. As for governing the children, it referred to educating the children rationally as well as doting on them. As for spoiling the children, it was somewhat similar to coddling the children. It also benefited the children a lot to grow up in a family where the parents were on good terms with each other. Consequently, after Xian and Meng Meng dressed themselves up, Ziqiang and Zhixiniu walked forward, whom Xian had called and communicated with in advance. The little girl took the initiative to invite them as she said, "Grandfather, grandmother, we will go to Ocean Park after breakfast. Ocean Park is so much fun. Are you coming with us?" "All right," Ziqiang touched the little girl's head smilingly and said, "As your grandfather and grandmother, we will play with you today." As a result, after they finished their breakfast, they headed for Ocean Park directly. This time, they did not book the whole park. It was somewhat good to be in a lively ocean park, which could make the atmosphere of playing much better. They arrived at the park. If it were before, Xian would be concerned that she would be recognized. Moreover, as Chinese New Voice was going to be aired, she became more popular because of the overwhelming propaganda, which made it much easier for them to be recognized. However, since she had a husband by her side, who was cultivating himself to be immortal, everything was fine for her. They began playing. Whenever Meng Meng went to the amusement park, she would ride the Ferris wheel. She liked nestling up to her father and mother, as she observed that the people or things beneath her became smaller and smaller. She felt somewhat terrified. However, she was far more excited and found the Ferris wheel interesting. Papa, Mama, grandfather, grandmother, look down below, they've all become smaller. Meng Meng's cheers and laughter also filled other places with fun. Look at the fish, it is bigger than me, it swims so fast. After they were done playing in Ocean Park, they visited around and went back to the castle after it got dark. The lights in the living room of the ground floor of the castle were not on, only several night luminescent pearls were brimming with gentle light. There was a small round table on the side, which was surrounded by several chairs. There was even a guitar on a chair. There was a big cake on the table, which took up more than half of the table. The shape of the cake was the same as that of the castle they lived in. The cake was as vivid as life. When Meng Meng saw the cake, her big eyes shone. It seemed that she had sensed something vaguely. Zhang Han and Xian held Meng Meng's tender hands and sat in the chairs by the table. Following that, Xian picked up the guitar and began playing it gently under Meng Meng's shining stare. As expected, it was a birthday wish song, which was quite soft and gentle. As Xian sang melodiously in it gently, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you," those 4 simple sentences conveyed her wish to Meng Meng. After Xian was done with singing, she went on playing the guitar. Instead, it was Zhang Han who sang the song now. At this moment, it seemed that his masculine voice was much softer. He sang gently and warm-heartedly, "Happy birthday to you." As Zhang Han finished the 4 lines, Xian and Zhang Han sang together, "Happy birthday to you." It seemed that they were singing one after another in a progressive way, which sounded quite relaxingly to the listeners. However, after they finished the song, Meng Meng said somewhat confusedly before Zhang Han spoke, "Happy birthday, Papa, Mama, whose birthday is it today? I want to eat cake, I am hungry." Chapter 529, The Little Girl's Choice. "Today is your birthday." Staring at Meng Meng, who was anticipating eating the cake, Zhang Han could not help laughing. He stretched out his hands, pinched Meng Meng's pink and tender cheek, and smiled as he said, "This is the first time that Papa has celebrated your birthday. I also made the cake specifically for you. You can eat more cake today. By the way, I wish you a happy birthday, Meng Meng." Xian also said smilingly, "Happy birthday, babe." Ziqiang and Zixiniu also said, "Happy birthday, Meng Meng." "Well?" ? Meng Meng was stunned and even forgot to blink her big eyes. It was not until 2 seconds later that the little girl came to her senses and her big eyes got bright all of a sudden. "Is it my birthday?" "Meng Meng's birthday." Zhang Han smiled and said, "Yes, it is your birthday. It is Meng Meng's birthday, my birthday. Ah, it is my birthday, ho ho ho. I am going to celebrate my birthday, I can eat cake." Meng Meng was so happy all of a sudden that she grinned from ear to ear. As Xian saw this scene, her eyes became red. She felt sour in the heart since it was only she who understood how difficult it was for her to get everything she had currently. At that moment, she was about to cry with joy. However, she did not weep. Instead, she pressed her red lips together and blinked her eyes quickly. It was not until she calmed herself down that she stroked Meng Meng's tender head as she said, "We need to put in the candles first. It is not until after you make a wish and blow out the candles that you can eat cake." Meng Meng replied eagerly, "I know, Mama. Then we should put in the candles quickly. Here you go." Zhang Han took the candles from the side table and inserted them in the front of the castle cake as he said, Meng Meng, you are 4 years old now, so we are going to put 4 candles on the cake. After Zhang Han was done inserting the candles, he lit them up with a lighter. Xian said in a gentle voice, "All right, make a wish now." "Yes, I am going to make a wish." Meng Meng pressed her tender palms together and closed her shining big eyes as she mumbled, "I want to." "Well, make a wish." "Well, Papa, Mama." Xian could not help reminding her as she said, "You should make a wish silently in your heart." Meng Meng reacted instantly and closed her mouth. It was not until about 20 seconds later she opened her big eyes and said joyfully, "I am done with making my wish. I am going to blow out the candles." "Woo, Papa, can I eat cake now?" Zhang Han took a cake knife from the side as he replied, "Of course you can." He cut the cake while saying, "I am going to cut a big piece of cake for my little princess, who is celebrating her birthday today." Meng Meng pointed at the upper area of the castle cake and said, "I want to eat the cake on the round house." Zhang Han obeyed her order and cut a big piece of cake. "So big, you are so kind, Papa." Meng Meng took over the small fork and started eating the cake. It was not until she devoured a few mouthfuls of cake that she observed the abnormalities and lifted her tender head as she said, "Papa, Mama, Grandmother, and Grandfather, why don't you eat cake?" Zhang Han chuckled as he replied, "We will eat later, since you are hungry. Meng Meng, you should eat a small piece first. After that, let's go to the back mountain and play the fireworks." "Fireworks?" Meng Meng murmured and ate the cake much more quickly. After Meng Meng finished eating a big piece of cake, she patted her tender belly, hopped off the chair, and said, "I'm done. Let's go to play with fireworks quickly." Zhang Han smiled, stood up, and walked outside as he said, "Let's go. Let's play with the fireworks. Let's go." All the family members walked out of the castle, followed the path amid the underbrush at the back of the castle, passed by the Thunder Yang tree, and went to the back mountain. Right at this moment, many people were hiding in each corner of the back mountain. All the people, including Zhao Feng, Zif, Zhang Li, Wang Ming, Wang Ya, Rong Jiaxin, Liang Hao, Liang Menkai, and so on, were ready in each corner. It was dark. Fortunately, there were no mosquitoes and bugs here, otherwise, they would have suffered. Besides these familiar guys, the family members of the security group and the Wang family were also there. Zhao Feng stared at one side of the castle quite warily. Upon seeing Zhang Han's family members walking out, he picked up the interphone as he said, "They are coming, they are coming. Everybody, attention, I will count down later and we should get it started immediately." As Zhao Feng alerted them, he paid attention to the several people walking over as he said, 3, 2, 1. As Zhao Feng's voice faded away, Dai and Little Hai, who were by his side, could not restrain themselves any more and bark loudly. It seemed that the show had just started. Woo, 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 woo. Ooh, 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 ooh. They barked happily and seemed to be saying, "Little Master, happy birthday." Meng Meng called out happily, "Hey, Big Hai Hai, Little Hai Hai." She saw the two of them running from afar vaguely. Right at this moment, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Flashes of fireworks rose into the sky. They were not ordinary fireworks at all. Instead, they were some magical fireworks that Zhang Han had specifically refined and did not need any help. It was pretty easy to release these fireworks, which were the same as grenades. As long as the thread was triggered, the fireworks would rise to the sky by themselves. There were 4 rough, shining lights in total rising into the sky. Clatter. They broke into 4 round and big fireworks in the low sky. At this moment, the fireworks illuminated the entire New Moon Bay. Even many passers-by in New Moon Bay could see the firework display. Upon seeing this scene, they were all at a loss. Following that, they snapped photos one after another and discussed hotly, another fireworks display. The fireworks display last time illuminated the whole New Moon Bay. It is on display this time again. When did the fireworks display become so random? Though you can't do a fireworks display, that does not mean others can't, but the fireworks display looks quite beautiful. Why does the color of the fireworks look so glorious? Such a beautiful fireworks display, its shape is so good. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The fireworks rose into the sky and bloomed continuously over and over, which lasted for a full 10 minutes. As the fireworks display came to an end, Zhang Han picked up Meng Meng in his arms directly, kissed on her cheek, and said smilingly, "Today is Meng Meng's birthday. Papa prepared a show for you specifically." "What is it?" Meng Meng's big shining eyes were bright all of a sudden. Even Xian was at a loss and thought, what is the show? Why didn't he tell me? Following that, Zhang Han took Meng Meng to Ziking's arms and said, "You let your grandfather hold you for a while. I am going to perform a show for you." Zhang Han smiled while the others stared at him. He moved forward dozens of steps, lifted his head, and stared at the moon in the sky. He scrunched down and took an ordinary long sword 3 feet in length out from the underbrush with his left hand. Clash! Zhang Han stretched out his right hand and pulled the long sword out slowly. A deep roar came from out of the sword. At this moment, the fireworks display had not come yet to an end, which still illuminated the whole Mount New Moon. The light from the fireworks and moon was reflected on the long sword. Swish! All of a sudden, Zhang Han moved and thrashed the sword sideways. Following that, he lifted the sword, swept it horizontally, and flung it by circling. A sword flower was displayed. Following that, Zhang Han started moving. Swish, swish, swish. As Zhang Han moved the sword faster and faster, the sword light blinked and looked fabulously amazing. This was a kind of sword playing, which utilized the visual senses to the fullest. It was pleasing to the eye but of no use. However, Zhang Han did so to show off in front of Meng Meng. The effect was quite obvious. Meng Meng said with admiration all over her face, "Whoa, you are so handsome, Papa, it is so beautiful." Xian saw the expression on the little girl's face, bit her lower lip, and said in a low voice, "Deceiver." As for the others, including Ziqiang, Rong Jiaxin, Wang Zanzong, Wang Zanping, even Liu Qingfeng, and so on, they were standing around and staring at Zhang Han, who was waving the sword, and they had only one thought in their minds, awesome. Indeed, as for the sword trick, which Zhang Han thought of as a mere form, it had to be awesome. Soon, a minute later, Zhang Han retrieved his long sword and put it back in the scabbard. After that, he squatted down, put the sword down in the underbrush, and sent the sword back into the space ring. Meng Meng clasped her tender hands continuously as she said, "Papa is so amazing." A smile crept over the corner of Zhang Han's lips. He walked over. As he was just at the front of Meng Meng, some lights bloomed from afar all of a sudden. Everyone looked over and saw dozens of people running over. Several people held a few big shining characters in their hands, which read, "Happy Birthday, Meng Meng." There were some small light decorations, which were formed into many shapes, including flowers, grass, trees, and so on. Today was Meng Meng's birthday, the birthday date of the little master of Cold Mortal School, which was worthy of celebrating. On the other hand, they celebrated for the Wang family and the security groups joining and moving in. Consequently, almost everybody was here, encircling the place where Zhang Han was. Upon seeing so many people all of a sudden, Meng Meng got somewhat shy. She nestled up in Zhang Han's arms and hid her tender head in her papa's neck. However, 5 minutes later, Meng Meng lifted her head again, waved her tender hands, and said in a melodious and crisp voice, "Everyone, thanks for celebrating my birthday with me. Ha ha ha." Meng Meng's words made everyone laugh out loud. All right, time for the meal. Zhang Han smiled and headed for the big restaurant of Cold Immortal School. However, as they were about to enter the castle, Meng Meng was at a loss. Upon seeing them walking forward, the little girl said somewhat anxiously, "Well, something is wrong, the cake is still there." Zhang Han pinched Meng Meng's cheek smilingly and said, "The cake has been moved there." Zhang Han was glad to pinch her soft and pink cheek. "Well, it is taken there." It was not until this time that Meng Meng felt relieved. They arrived in a big restaurant. There was a big door on one side. There was normal glass on one side and integrated French windows on the three other sides. The lighting was so good that they could see the adjacent pool. A signboard was hung on the upper part of the door, which read, Meng Meng's Recreational Restaurant. Though the address had been changed, this name was quite memorable. Moreover, they would treat dozens of members here soon. They planned to have hot pot for dinner. However, Wang Long had prepared exclusive food specifically, which was divided into several lines on the nearby cabinets. Various kinds of snacks, cold dishes, and fruits from the mountain were also placed at the side. Within a short period, the fruits from the Garden of Cold Immortal School had conquered many people. Even those who did not like eating fruit could not resist such a delicacy like this. At first, the fruits had been taken to the restaurant of the company, and even the ordinary members of the company could buy them. However, within only 3 days, the fruits were in short supply, which scared Zhao Feng so much that he called a halt to the fruit supply in a hurry and included the fruits into the members' food. However, there was a compulsory requirement for those members, which was they were prohibited from wasting the fruits. If they did so, they would be refused the serving of fruits next time. As for those members in the restaurant, whatever their identities were, they needed to be obedient. Whatever they wanted to have, they should take less than needed and take more later if the quantity was not sufficient, which was another way to have a buffet. They had prepared quite a sumptuous dinner this day. Even those with ordinary food intake would be full by taking a bite of each dish. Of course, it was a different situation when it came to the big eaters. Consequently, they started having delicious and fragrant hot pot. After Meng Meng was almost full, she ate another piece of cake and divided the other pieces to give to others. Meng Meng, you are celebrating your birthday. This is a gift from Auntie Fei Fei. Auntie Lilai also has gifts for you. This is a small gift that Auntie Meng Kai has specifically prepared for you. Previously, Liang Meng Kai had called herself a young sister, however. She took the initiative to call herself an aunt now, which might have had something to do with Zhao Feng. After all, Meng Meng had called him Uncle Feng all the time. Everybody started giving Meng Meng their gifts one after another. Meng Meng was so happy, feeling that she was the focus. Thanks, Auntie Fei Fei, Auntie Lilai, Auntie Meng Kai, and Uncle Feng. Meng Meng expressed her gratitude quite politely. There were a lot of people, so there were a lot of gifts. However, Zhao Feng had been prepared for that. He got a cart and placed the delicate gift boxes in the cart one after another. After all the gifts were collected, he asked someone to push the gifts to the castle so that Meng Meng could play by herself while unwrapping the gifts at night. The dinner ended amid an extremely lively atmosphere. Zhang Han's family members, Ziqiang, Xixiniu, and Wang Ming's family members, all followed Zhang Han to the castle. Papa and Mama have gifts for you too. After everyone sat down on the sofa in the living room on the ground floor, Xian smiled gently and took 5 gift boxes out from the side, which were of various sizes, and put them on the floor. Xian and Meng Meng untied the colorful wrappings together and opened various boxes. There was a drivable car in the biggest box. A crystal flower sculpture was in another nearby box, which was made by Zhang Han. The flower was so beautiful that people could not stop looking at it from the corner of their eyes. Meng Meng liked it more. There was a rectangle box on the right side. After the box was unwrapped, a 1-foot-long sword lay peacefully inside. The sword was made of wood, though it was very light in weight. It looked quite beautiful. Whether its sword handle or the sword body, it suited Meng Meng well. As Xian opened the box, she could not help staring at Zhang Han and thinking, since Zhang Han performed such a long show a moment ago, Meng Meng must have been affected. There was a toy gun on the right side, and a beautiful doll was last. Xian blinked her big eyes as she said, Meng Meng, You can only choose one out of the 5 gifts. Which one do you like? Upon discussion, she and Zhang Han finally made up their mind that they should prepare more gifts rather than only one gift. Later on, Zhang Han had another idea and confirmed that they should prepare these gifts. Depending on Meng Meng's choice, Zhang Han would consider when Meng Meng could get in touch with cultivation and how she could cultivate herself. For example, if Meng Meng chose the flower, Zhang Han would consider educating her with the kind of education like illusions. If it were the gun, Zhang Han would educate her with a kind of trick that could launch an attack remotely. If Meng Meng chose the gun, which was Zhang Han's destiny weapon, Zhang Han would have much to teach her. If it were the doll, Zhang Han could teach her some tricks of manipulating puppets. If Meng Meng chose the car, Zhang Han would consider refining the god transformation trick and teach her how to control that kind of feeling of controlling the speed. Of course, Meng Meng's personal preference mattered the most. Meng Meng would be more interested if she liked what she was doing. Meng Meng was 4 years old now. After time is up, it passes by soon. When Meng Meng became 10 a few years later, she would get in touch with the cultivation after all. Consequently, in these few years, Zhang Han planned to make a plan for Meng Meng based on her preferences or refine the most suitable way for Meng Meng. As parents, they always wanted to leave the best for their children. It was because Meng Meng had never seen the sword performance, or maybe Zhang Han preferred the sword the better in secret, that he showed off sword performing in front of Meng Meng. Why can I only choose one? I want them all. Upon hearing Xian's words, Meng Meng pouted her mouth and stared at Zhang Han eagerly. Zhang Han saw her look and almost said, "Then we'll take them all." However, he pondered and said, "You choose the one you like the most, Meng Meng. As for the others, I will give them to you later. What do you think, Meng Meng?" "Well, then I will pick my favorite." Meng Meng sneaked around and went to in front of the gifts. She went to the front of the small cart first and said, "The small cart." She stretched out her tender hands, stroked the top of the cart, and went to the next one as she said, "Beautiful flower, it's a crystal flower. This is the thing that Papa used a moment ago. Toy gun." Meng Meng did not hesitate at all and held the doll on the end in her arms joyfully. "This doll is so adorable, I like it." Xian squatted down and said smilingly, "Meng Meng, you like this doll, right?" Meng Meng nodded obediently and said, "Yes, I like it." Ha ha ha. Xian covered her mouth, smiled, and glanced at Zhang Han. She thought, well, Meng Meng is a little girl, of course she likes the doll. However, Meng Meng put down the doll the next moment and said, "If I can only choose one, I won't choose the doll since I have so many dolls." Meng Meng looked somewhat reluctant to part with the doll and seemed to be consoling herself. After Meng Meng put down the doll, she walked to the side of the short sword joyfully and held up the sword handle directly as she said, "I like this one too. I want to be like Papa and play with Papa." Ha ha ha. Zhang Han laughed immediately and said, "All right, then Papa will play with you later on." Meng Meng stared at the thing at her hands somewhat confusedly as she said, "Papa, what is this?" Well, as for that, Zhang Han looked somewhat complacent and said slowly, "It is a sword. If both edges of a sword were open, its body was straight and its point was edgy, it could pierce through armor. It was destined for killing under extremely dangerous situations. As the king of the armors, it was called the king of all the weapons. There were various kinds of weapons that showed up one after another and continuously. They looked like different flowers, which had their characteristics and capabilities. Since there were many types of weapons, it was hard to measure them. However, as for some weapons, they were born with piercing and vigilant aura in nature. The sword was the best among all the weapons. Even in the cultivation world, the cultivators using the sword were of the largest quantity. As for the types of swords, there were long ones and short ones. When it came to their power, it would depend on their grade. Zhang Han saw Meng Meng's choice and broke into laughter. Due to the preference of a little girl, she liked the doll. However, she chose the sword for the sake of her papa, which made Zhang Han feel that he could emphasize various kinds of tricks and secretive skills when he asked Meng Meng to try cultivation in the future. Xian saw Meng Meng shaking the small sword in her hands casually. She was amused and shook her head again. When it came to children's choices, interests, and personalities, they were related to their parents. Zhang Han stroked Meng Meng's small head smilingly and said, "Then, Meng Meng, since you are done choosing, the other gifts are also yours." The little girl exclaimed happily and said, "Okay." Meng Meng placed the small sword on the cart, put the crystal flower at the back, and put the gun on the side. After that, holding the doll in her arms, she drove the car around the living room. Everyone sat for a while. Ziqiang and Zixiniu went back to their rooms to have a rest. Zhang Han pushed the cart filled with gifts and went to the bedroom on the 3rd floor. It was time for them to unwrap the gifts together. Meng Meng was quite interested. The birthday celebration this time was destined to be unforgettable. Chapter 530. The Ending Concert. At 8 o'clock the next morning, Zhang Han drove Xian and Meng Meng to St. Kindergarten. Since they had asked for leave for the little girl to celebrate her birthday, Lugo had organized a file for Xian, including some knowledge taught in the school, such as some Cantonese, English, and so on. Xian had imparted Meng Meng with the knowledge last night. Since Meng Meng had a pretty good memory, she remembered it all soon. However, she had a short-term memory. Consequently, on the way to the kindergarten, Xian taught her again and asked, "How do you say I have eaten?" Duo, in Chinese Pinyin. I am not doing it on purpose. Wu Haida Denk. Meng Meng's voice took after that of her mother, which sounded melodious. Moreover, since she was little, her voice sounded innocent, which was a pleasure to the listeners. Meng Meng did not need to learn and study many new things every day. She learned pretty fast. After they arrived at the kindergarten, Zhang Han walked Meng Meng to the line of her class. Several little fellows, including Martin and Lehman, waved their hands and greeted them. "Hello, Meng Meng's dad." These little fellows favored Zhang Han so much. They had been won over by Zhang Han because of the delicious food. After Zhang Han greeted them, he also left the kindergarten and went back to the company. After that, he got in a helicopter and turned to the program division in Shenzhen. Today was the last day of the show. The concert, which the program division had prepared and thousands of people would attend, was an ending ceremony for the first season of Chinese New Voice. It would be aired on the show. 3 groups of mentors would sing a song respectively. As for those 8 powerful trainees, they would also sing a song respectively. In the end, the mentors and the trainees in their groups would sing a song together. In the near future, after Zhang Han was done with today's chores, he would bring Meng Meng to play in the snow in northeast China on her Christmas holiday. Since the little princess had never seen snow yet, she had to feel pretty curious once she saw snow for the first time. Of course, Zhang Han was somewhat prepared for the show today. Since it was his first time accompanying Xian performing on an entertainment show, he needed to make a perfect ending to it. Soon, over half an hour later, the helicopter arrived at the rented villa. After that, Zhang Han drove to visit the program division. The place this time was renovated from a factory workshop, which looked like an indoor stadium. Its size was pretty large. After all, the capital of the program division was strong. Compared with a few shows they had held previously, they could do whatever they wanted this time. After Zhang Han arrived at the destination, he saw that more than 20 people converging somewhere backstage. Most of them were staff members. The other 3 mentors had arrived. Before Zhang Han approached them, he heard many discussions, which almost always included the 2 named Han Yang. As people saw Zhang Han, Xian, and Zif walking over, the discussions faded away. Zuo Dong smiled and said, "Yo, Xian, Han Yang, I guessed it right that you must be on good terms with each other. You came here together this time. They are a perfect match since the male is able and the female is beautiful. Ha ha, ha ha." Diehua did not finish his words. However, everyone knew that Diehua had implied that they probably were a couple. This kind of guessing was wrong, which was clear. They were a couple, who had a child. Xian smiled gently and replied, I never said that we were strangers. Guru, you are indeed powerful. Gufan gave a thumbs up to Zhang Han continuously as he said, it did not occur to me that you were proficient in electronic music and Jing. The electronic music album that you have made for Lilai is so popular, the songs are so rhythmic that I can't even resist them. Yes, Xuanhuan spread his hands out and said, one event succeeds another. Xian's songs just swept across the board and another DJ goddess, Lilai, reigned the board completely this time. A lot of singers are forced to suffer in silence. However, Xian and Lilai did beat them with their capabilities. Diehua smiled and said, I heard that these electronic songs are not only popular in Hua Nation but also overseas. They are getting popular at a pretty fast speed. Moreover, the quality of the MV is quite good. At this time, Tong Jiajia said, of course, I heard from my friends that the MV of Lilai's album is made by a professional team at Universal Music, whose price is quite high. Xuanhuan nodded in agreement and said, this kind of high-quality song deserves to be refined at all costs. Gufan changed the look on his face all of a sudden and said, I wonder if you plan on doing any big trick. Big trick? Well. Xian blinked her big and beautiful eyes as she replied, take a guess. All right. Gufan grimaced and smiled bitterly as he said, then you must have a big trick. Chief Director Cheng Zhu came over and said solemnly, you guessed right. They do have a big trick, which probably will scare you. Xuanhuan smiled quite helplessly. I knew it. With him by Xian's side, they make up a perfect couple, complementing each other well. Other mentors were under great pressure while staying with Xian and Zhang Han. After all, the songs they had made were far too amazing. If other songs sung by other mentors were left far behind, they would be criticized. Everyone chatted with each other joyfully backstage. They went to the respective preparation rooms and did their makeup at 11 o'clock. Xian also got dressed, imitating the makeup style of Lilai in the MV. Coincidentally, after the main person in charge of Universal Music heard the songs on the album, he was quite touched and offered a piece of advice that Lilai should wear clothing with marks. Consequently, he designed a set of clothing, a black sweater, black and blue jeans, and sneakers with a black surface and white lining. There was also a sign of flashing printed on the back of the sweater, which read as the character Z. After Zhang Han found out about this, he also found it quite interesting. Xian was dressed in such a style today. She put the hat of the sweater on her head. Her long hair went downward vertically from her chin, which made Xian look unique and different. Upon seeing Xian's makeup style, Xuanhuan was at a loss and thought, isn't it Lilai's makeup style in the MV? What the hell is going on? He could not figure out anything and was about to ask Xian. A voice came from the stage. Hello, everyone, I am the Chief Director of Chinese New Voice, Cheng Zhu. Thanks for attending the ending concert of the first season of Chinese New Voice. Everybody, go, ho ho. Thousands of people below the stage cheered and screamed, showing their due respect for Cheng Zhu's feelings. After a ferocious competition, Chinese New Voice came to a perfect ending. The official version will be aired at 8 o'clock every Friday starting December 5th. Let's welcome the first group of mentors to perform for us. They are Xuanhuan and Diehua. Welcomed them with applause. Clatter. Amid the audience's applaud, the lights on the stage became darker. Xuanhuan and Diehua went on the stage in a hurry and stood at their positions with some backing dancers. When they were ready, the backing music rang out. At the same time, a melodic song was sung. It is adapted from an ordinary path. It sounds so good with the rapping of mentor Xuanhuan. Many trainees backstage nodded their heads continuously. After this song was over, it was Gufan's turn to be on the stage. As expected, Xian was the last one to perform grandly. The song that Gufan performed was only one. Since it was accompanied by a quite popular rhythm, it made numerous female fans scream aloud. The song ended eventually. Cheng Zhu walked on the stage again and said, "Let's welcome the star mentor next, Xian." Applaud. As the audience applauded and exclaimed, Xian turned her head around and winked at Zhang Han wickedly. After that, she went on the stage quickly. At this moment, it was pretty dark on the stage and the light was dim. After Xian found her position, she turned her back to the audience below the stage. Thump. Amid a deep and dull sound, the whole stage became quiet, meaning that the performance was going to be live. The whole stage was in darkness. Before the music started, this kind of atmosphere made the audience feel somewhat expectant. Even Diehua, Xuanhuan, and Gufan, who had finished singing, said curiously backstage, "I wonder what Xian is going to sing. I guess the stage effect should be quite amazing. I just have that kind of strong feeling. Whenever she sings, the performance effect is quite intriguing." Well, why is it fade? Upon hearing the rhythm of the opening, Xuanhuan was at a loss and asked, "Isn't it a piece of electronic music?" Not only him, even those trainees felt curious. Since this was a piece of electronic music, if Xian had prepared those types of equipment for the DJ, the performance might be amazing. However, she intended to sing the song. Under this kind of situation, they did not notice that the corner of Zhang Han's lips was slightly crooked. Zhang Han had been by their side. He knew the best that compared with the original fade, the upgraded faded was a divine tune, who got much more popularity and more rewards. At last, amid the accompanying piano music, the lights were lit. Several flashes of lights were on Xian's body. She turned her back to the stage and lifted her right hand up high. There was a microphone in her hands. The character Z looked extremely clear, which shone slightly. 5 seconds later, her right hand made an arc and fell. After that, she turned around, faced the audience, walked forward 6 or 7 steps, and stood at the center of the stage. At that moment, she held up the microphone and opened her mouth. Her voice was so melodious that it sounded like it was from heaven. "You were the shadow to my life. Did you feel us?" It did not occur to the audience that it was an English song, which most of the people did not understand. However, the stretched voice and unidentifiable chaos sounded somewhat special. Another start. "You fade away, afraid our aim is out of sight, wanna see us alive." As Xian sang the last word, she articulated the word one time aloud, meaning that the uneventful rhythm was behind. "Where are you now? Where are you now?" As Xian sang, the accompaniment of the piano music was upgraded into a piece of electronic music, which was accompanied by a heavy low voice. At this moment, the music pierced through the whole stage. Many fans could not help holding up the glow sticks in their hands and swaying along with the music. Backstage, the other 3 mentors were not peaceful anymore. Gufan turned his head back, stared at Zhang Han, and smiled as he said, "Guru, did you write this song or did she adapt the song? I think this piece of electronic music is perfectly blended." Zhang Han replied casually, "We discussed it together." Xuanhuan and Diehua looked at each other's eyes, smiled bitterly, and shook their heads. Xuanhuan said emotionally, "It can be imagined that this song might be popular again." Soon, the song ended. The screaming voices from the audience below the stage almost toppled the roof. Amid numerous screams and cheering, Xian bowed and retreated. After she went backstage, she came into another round of exclamation. However, the show still needed to go on. Cheng Zhu went on the stage and announced, "Next, let's welcome one of the 8 powerful trainees of the first season of Chinese New Voice, Luz, to perform on stage." He did not mention the relative ranking. Since the show was not aired yet, it would not be a good thing at all if the detailed ranking was leaked. Consequently, 8 powerful trainees went on stage one after another except for Zhang Han since he was not on the list. However, as a special guest, he was in Xian's team and sang a song together with other trainees. After they were done with the singing, 2 hours had passed. After the show ended, Chief Director Cheng Zi took the initiative to invite people as he said, "I have arranged a luncheon in Liming Restaurant, shall we celebrate together?" He said so to quite a few people, namely, Zhang Han, Xian, and a few other people. Xian pondered it and nodded. Zhang Han also consented. Consequently, everyone arrived at a luxurious lounge of Liming Restaurant and ordered a lot of wine. It seemed that they would not go home without being drunk. Females would drink red wine and males would drink beer universally. On the table, this group of folks set themselves free after taking in 2 bottles of beer. "Guru, I should propose a toast to you. I admire you so much, you are my idol." A glass of beer was emptied. Gafan nodded solemnly as he said, "Guru, I admire not only your talent but also your personality. If there is a chance in the future, I hope we can cooperate. I mean it sincerely." He drank another toast again. Xiaodong toasted as he said, "Though I am an elder to all of you, I should call you Guru here." Another toast. As for Zhang Han, he acted the same all the time, smiled gently, and responded politely, "Yes, okay, you are polite." It went on one round after another. As they drank up the beer one glass after another, Zhang Han was totally fine, the faces of the others all flushed. The drinking party had been going on for just an hour. As for those who drank heavily with Zhang Han, 80% of them passed out and the remaining 20% were confused. Though Zhang Han did not say anything at all, one drank a toast by himself and mumbled as he said, "Well said, Guru, let's drink a toast." After he drank up, he lay beneath the table happily, which everybody found amusing. Chief Director Cheng Zi was the only one who did not drink at all. He had been observing the situation all the time. Whenever someone passed out, he asked people to take them to have a rest. Consequently, the people at the table became fewer and fewer gradually. At last, even Cheng Zi was curious as to how amazing Zhang Han's drinking capability was. Consequently, this luncheon came to a perfect end. Zhang Han was fine. As for Xian, she had drunk some red wine. Her tender face was flushed. She was somewhat drunk. When a female gets drunk, she looks somewhat foolish and cute. However, Xian was quiet. She got in the car quietly, got on the plane quietly, and went back to Cold Immortal School. She was not quiet anymore after getting back to the bedroom. Since Ziqiang, Xixiniu, and Liu Qingfeng had gone to Singapore, they were alone in the whole castle. Consequently, Xian's amazing body pressed on Zhang Han's as if it were a snake. The clothing came off, one item at a time. Soon, a piece of music with uneventful rhythm lingered around the bedroom. At 4 o'clock, Zhang Han put his coat on as he walked out of the bedroom. He went downstairs and drove to the kindergarten to pick up Meng Meng. After he picked up Meng Meng successfully, the little girl spread out her tender palm as she said, "Papa, this is the 5th flower. Papa, you can promise me 5 requests." Whoa! Upon seeing her happy look, of course, Zhang Han praised her continuously. After they went back to the castle, Xian had gotten up. Moreover, she tidied up the messy bed and changed the bed sheets and bed cover. Meng Meng and Xian stuck the red flower on the blackboard together. The little girl stared at the board for quite a few minutes. After that, she went to the back mountain satisfactorily and played with Dai and Little Hai. Zhang Han and Xian accompanied her by her side. Soon, Zif was here and informed them about a few pieces of news. Lilai's album is popular. She lists the producer of every one of her songs as Han Yang, which makes Han Yang become popular again. The program division of Chinese New Voice showed a few shots of sister-in-law, using Han Yang's popularity to do the propaganda. Moreover, due to the music style of Lilai's album, people are more and more interested in the show. There are a lot of topics now. If the show is aired tomorrow, I am sure it will break a lot of records. I can predict that Chinese New Voice should be a phenomenal entertainment show this winter. Now many people know Lilai is in Star Moon Bar. Per Uncle Sun's advice, she signed a contract with the Purple Moon Entertainment Company and pursues her career as a celebrity. She is not in the bar anymore currently and plans to hold an outdoor concert on the 15th. As Xian heard her out, she nodded. She would be less occupied in recent days, since the show had just ended. She would rest herself for a few days. After that, she would take an easy short-term job and end the job before the 26th so that she could accompany her family members to play in the snow. As a mother, she was quite looking forward to playing in the snow. Zhang Han saw Zhang Li becoming much more occupied in recent days and did not overthink it. He was okay with it as long as Zhang Li had fun. After he had been accompanying Meng Meng for some while on the back mountain, they went back to the castle, told stories, and went to sleep. A happy life. The next evening, after the little girl fell asleep, Zhang Han and Xian put on headsets, lay on the bed, and watched the first episode of Chinese New Voice. Holy God! As they opened the video, the bullet screen filled the screen, which indicated that the show was quite popular. A few seconds later, they had no choice but to turn off the bullet screen. The show lasted for 1.5 hours. Zhang Han had a few shots before the show started. However, it was not until the end of the show that he showed up and sung a song. He sang melodiously. The program division even edited a few comments, which seemed to be made by Han Yang, and surprised expressions over it. However, not qualified. Xian's words left the audience feeling stunned. The audience also felt nervous and thought, how come such an amazing trainee is not qualified? Doubt crept into people's hearts. Following that, mentor Zhuo Dong walked over and handed his golden chain out. I am here for Xian. Han Yang said no to Zhuo Dong's golden chain. Zoom. The show ended and left people wondering whether Han Yang was promoted or not. Many netizens were angry. F-King poor editing. I want to send them some blades. Those crumpy ones even swore loudly. However, they had no other way out. All they could do was wait until next week for the show, which they were itching to see. As time went by day after day, since Meng Meng had classes conscientiously, she got more and more red flowers gradually. The 6th flower, the 7th flower, and as she got the 8th flower, it was December 25th. It was a day when Zhang Li held a concert. Originally, Sun Ming had been somewhat concerned about the size of the audience at first. However, it did not occur to him that Zhang Li would be popular to such an extent. The concert would be held in a stadium that could hold 5,000 people. As the sale of the tickets began, all the tickets were sold out 3 minutes later. Following that, the scalpers began to speculate on the concert tickets. The original ticket price was $388. It was elevated to $6,888 by the scalpers. The price went up continuously and was even on quite a lot of news shows. Consequently, when the concert began, the vertical columns rose from the ground around the square one after another, encircling the whole venue. Even so, many people stood in the surrounding area. Even if they could not see the stage, it worked for them if they could listen to music. The moment Zhang Li was on the stage, she sang 5 songs consecutively. Following that, Sun Dongying made a cameo and sang 2 songs. Zhang Li rested for a few minutes and went on stage again. The whole scene was quite explosive. As Sun Dongying went on the stage of Zhang Li's concert, the number of his followers rocketed up. On the live streaming software, he was elevated to the #1 streamer, which earned him many dignities. As one of the 8 powerful trainees of Chinese New Voice, he also performed in this kind of large-sized concert. He was going to be well known. Wasn't he?